Saturday night, folks. Good to see everybody out there at the Voice of College Football. Welcome in. Appreciate you being here for this impromptu session with the Voice of College Football. So thank you so much for setting that bell for the notifications. So we're going live, and I decided about 3 minutes before we went live that I'd like to go live. It's been a great day here at the Voice of College Football behind the scenes. A lot of great things in store for all of you throughout the rest of the spring, summer months into the fall. So the planning is underway to provide the very best for all of you. We do our best. We will continue to do our best. And you know what? I had about really 9 videos listed that I am ready, just about ready to shoot. That's what I should be working on right now. I've got about 9 videos to shoot where I've taken notes or I just have the idea in my head. I know what I want to do and I'm ready to shoot the videos. But you know what? I just wanted to go live. So we're live. So this is the nice thing about having your own channel is you just go live whenever you want to and hope that somebody shows up. So thank you all for showing up. I just thought, you know what? I want to talk college football. And I gave it about 30 seconds of thought and what's going to be the topic of the show. And then I thought, you know what? Open it up right up for everybody. You guys ultimately produce the show anyway, every time. So I've got a few ideas, few things that are rumbling around in my head that I will pass by everyone. But certainly I'll leave the comments in the live chat. And we'll make a judgment call on opening up the phone lines. It depends how many people we get in here, if we can get a decent crowd, and all of you want to call. Sometimes we'll open up the phone lines every so often, and few people are interested in calling. Now, the response to the call-in shows have been phenomenal, so thank you so much for that. We typically have to shut down after 3 or 3.5 hours because we're just getting too many calls, and it's just never going to end. So thank you for your response to the call-in shows. But every so often, not much of a response on the call-in shows. We had one a couple of weeks ago in which there wasn't much response despite having a lot of people online. So I'm not going to open up the phone lines if nobody wants to talk to me, but I will certainly take your comments and questions in the chat. Okay, a few things on my mind. Let's run them down. First and foremost is that I was working this afternoon on setting up guests for a number of the team channels. So every team channel has, or a number of the team channels, 8 of them, I believe, we might be working on 9 here, have weekly live streams. And I would love to bring on media from opponents to talk about those matchups coming up in 2022. So, for example, the Ohio State show on Wednesday, bring on, bam, week 1, Notre Dame, bring on somebody from Notre Dame, and we're going to do just that. So this Wednesday, 1:30 Eastern on the Ohio State show, bam, Brian Driscoll, one of the very best from Irish Breakdown, going to join us for our Buckeyes show. And so that's what I'm going to try to line up. Now, you talk about complicated. And when I let you guys know from time to time, being a one-man band, setting all this stuff up takes time. And it's not just getting on here sometimes and talking, which is what I generally do. You guys know I don't play in these shows and I don't produce them. We would like to get to that point at some point because if I'm able to fully produce a college football show, then you will see a college football show. Well, we haven't gotten there yet. So we just click on the live button and go and just start talking. But, think about it. We've got 8 team live streams per week. Well, we've got 2 for Miami. So we've got 9 shows. We've got 8 teams and there's 12 opponents. So that's 108 spots to fill. So I thought I got to break open a spreadsheet to try to schedule all this. And it would be nice if we did them in order. So for example, Ohio State, we did the week 1 opponent first, then week 2, then week 3. And that's going to be nearly impossible. It's going to be difficult enough to get media from all the opponents on, but to also be able to schedule them on those specific days in order, that's probably not going to happen. But we're going to attempt. And my first 2 the first 3 that I got a commitment from did match up on the particular week that they need to be. So we're off to a good start. 3 out of 108 down. So be looking out for that again. Latch on to your favorite team. We most likely have a team channel for your favorite team. Team channel number 25 is officially on board. I stated the other night during our little channel update slash what I would like to call a workshop, where I got feedback from all of you, and thank you all for your interest. That is one of the most responsive live streams that we've ever had, not talking about college football, talking about the channel. So that felt good that you guys are so interested, engaged, supportive. All of that was phenomenal. And then we got follow-up feedback on emails. And so I appreciate that. I did make one statement that is proven not to be true. Well, it did. If you had listened to the entire statement that I made, because people had suggested more team channels. Because if I'm going to eliminate the specific content from the main channel, well, then we need a team channel. So I said no more team channels because we already have a collection of team channels that just aren't working right now. Lo and behold, bam, South Carolina. We started that today. So please subscribe. Well, what happened there was I said the other night when I said no more team channels unless one of two things happens. Either we get some type of financial backing that makes it substantial enough and justifies the time and the effort and everything that goes into building a team channel. So we've got to get either a sponsor or some type of financial backing, either that, and or we get content creators to say, I'm going to produce content for you, Mark, and it's got to be good content. So we got that from the Spurs Up Show. The Spurs Up Show. Check it out. Spurs Up Show right here on YouTube. And our guy, Chris Phillips, said, Mark, I'll get together with you once a week and I will produce some videos for you. And so we got a collaboration going with Spurs Up on South Carolina. So voila. Now we just need to crank up the sponsors and we will be in good shape. All right, let's get to the college football. And before I do, I'm going to check out the live chat. Got a couple items concerning college football today. Not really a whole lot, but again, wanted to open this up to all of you, but remind everyone, Amazon, use the link in the description section. When you shop Amazon, I know that you do, you will help us build the channel. And for a lot of you folks out there that are quite the gurus when it comes to affiliate marketing, you know what? If you know something about affiliate marketing, I would love to hear it. So hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail and we'll set up a phone call and you can let me know all that you know about affiliate marketing. That is the way to go from what I hear. Please hit the like button before you get settled in as well. All right, from the top. And again, I appreciate everybody being here on a Saturday night like that, even though we did not have this scheduled. Possibly sometime after the next holiday, Memorial Day weekend, when we get into the summer, I hopefully will be able to set a schedule. I hope I'll be able to set a schedule. That becomes increasingly more difficult with the more team channels that we have, because I'm obligated to 9 streams each week before we ever think about doing a call-in show. But, you know, Tukey G, when I don't schedule the live stream and I just come on, that is the best way for me to be right on time, is just to show up, because, yeah, we're right on time. Oh, you're right on time. I was right on time, too. Ferris, good to see you. You as well, Frank. Jason, of course, you saw right through this, didn't you? Of course, we are aligning with the Big Ten Lacrosse Championship. I had no idea that Big Ten even had lacrosse. The Big Ten has lacrosse. Okay, good to know. Well, not really good to know. Doesn't matter. I will probably forget that information tomorrow. Yes, Frank. Thank you. Hit the like button, please. Ed would like to know if I got a haircut or did I just comb it? Well, I typically comb my hair. I'm big on combing it. Haven't used a comb for a long time. Got the brush. The wide bristle brush is what I use typically. Got the old standby there. Yeah, got it cut. Had to get it cut. I have to admit, I wasn't too happy about the sideburns. I like to keep my sideburns at a certain length, and they really hacked those off. But every time he gets cut, it grows back. Every time he gets cut, it grows back. So I'm hoping and believing this time it's still going to continue to grow. So the sideburns are going to grow back. All right. Daniel. What's up, Mark? Watching Ohio State Notre Dame from 1995 on YouTube. Can't wait for week 1. Yes, Buckeyes won that game. Eddie George with the big day, 45-26. I'm going to be posting an Ohio State schedule preview. I've got notes on that right in front of me. Ohio State, and every team channel is going to have a schedule preview. And we also released a Michigan State schedule preview. Hope that you got a chance to see it. It's on Patreon. So please subscribe to Patreon, and we will fulfill all your schedule preview requests and more. And exclusive live streams, which aren't necessarily a big seller on the exclusive live streams when I do so many live streams here. I got it. Maybe I should reduce the live streams here. We can better market the exclusive live streams on Patreon. I'll think like a businessman someday. The hair comment by Ed reminded me of my favorite comment of the week. I'll never be able to find it. It's buried somewhere. Somebody took exception with this something in one of my videos, and they addressed me as, Just for Men. I couldn't think of the name of the product. Just for Men. Oh, man. Can you guys help me think of a good skit that we could come up? I can think of a few ideas. Maybe we go with the, we put the baby powder in the hair, and then I read the comment about Just for Men, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Or, there's a number of things we could do. Or we could go down to Walmart or Target and, shoot me buying my Just for Men and putting it in my hair. Or if I really wanted to get risky, and I am not willing to do this, is buy a bunch of different types of Just for Men because I don't know how to use it. And I was thinking do a really bad job on my hair where, I'd have to white out some of it, and then I'd make some really dark and some light brown, and I'd have to do such a horrible job for that to show up. But that is I always love the hair comments when they come in. No, you're going to know when I'm using the Just for Men because I won't know how to use it, and it's going to look horrible. But we will use it. We will use it. I'm going to have a huge change of heart for me not to use it. Hey, Zay, how you doing? Zay Zay Rogers is in the news at Boston College, the wide receiver, turning down all sorts of $600,000 and $800,000 contracts. Yeah, what's going on? The Kentucky Derby today. I heard there was an 80-1 shot. Strike it rich strike, whatever it was called, something like that. I saw a posting on Facebook. That's all I know. Michael, good to see you. Christian would like to know what the Big 12 commissioner situation looks like in regards to who's going to get the job. I got to tell you, we discussed it. We did discuss it on our Oklahoma show right after Bowlesby stepped down or announced that he will be stepping down. I don't have any thoughts about, do we have any names online? I can give you some kind of suggestion on who might be, most likely. We are not going to know these folks. Most likely, just like with Kliavkov. Is it George Kliavkov, the Pac-12 commissioner? Even the people that follow this sort of thing had no idea who that guy was. But based on his background, once I saw his background, I thought Pac-12 dying. Kliavkov understands branding, marketing, media. Great get, great hire outside the box. Good for you, Pac-12. We've got a listing from Heartland College Sports. They sound familiar. I think I had them on at one point. Heartland College Sports, names to watch to replace Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby. Okay. We have heard the name bantied about. Oliver Luck, former NFL quarterback, West Virginia quarterback. He has run a pro sports franchise 3 times, 2 NFL Europe franchises, and the MLS's Houston Dynamo. He served on the College Football Playoff Committee. We're not going to hold that against him. Based on everything I've heard of Oliver Luck, Alabama Athletic Director Greg Byrne. Now, somebody told me the other day, somebody made kind of an asinine comment that why would an athletic director get a bonus when their college football team makes the playoff? Okay. I didn't even know how to address that except to say, you understand, he's the guy that's responsible for the whole operation and he's making the decisions. No, he didn't throw a block in the game to win the conference championship. And no, he didn't catch a touchdown pass. But you understand, he made the hires. He put the structure in place. He does the fundraising. He's the guy responsible for the thing. So who would get a bonus when your team succeed? The athletic director. He has more to do with it than anyone. So don't know anything about Greg Byrne in particular, except for the name, Alabama AD Greg Byrne. We would expect that he does a fine job based on the football team. But I think that guy Saban's kind of responsible for that deal. Other than that, I don't know what the other Alabama sports teams are doing. I don't pay attention. I know that they used to have a really good softball team, tennis team, baseball team, all those things. I have no idea at this point. I see our man Golden Blue Dude in the chat. And maybe he's aware that West Virginia Athletic Director Shane Lyons. And these are just names. I don't know how credible this list is. Big 12 Executive Associate Commissioner Ed Stewart. And again, a lot of people we don't know. So that's like when the Miami Athletic Director job was open and they went to Clemson. How do we evaluate that hire? Nobody here knew who, and I can't remember his name right now. I knew it for about 3 weeks while that story was going on and he was first hired. But I don't remember the new Miami Athletic Director's name, but he came from Clemson. So what's the evaluation there? Do we know his work? Yes and no. Do we know it closely, intimately? No, we don't. But look at the Clemson sports programs. How are they doing? Well, the baseball's exceptional. The football is elite. So that's how the AD gets evaluated. What type of hires has the AD made in those particular programs? And of course, we only care about football here. And so there are a lot of athletic directors that are being served up here in this article from places like Baylor, Colorado, again, West Virginia, and elsewhere. Daniel was going to place a bet today. It's always that bet you were going to place. Gary's here. A little baseball talk going on between Connor and the real MVP, Tennessee and Kentucky with a big baseball series apparently this weekend. I kind of miss those days of covering college baseball. I got to see big time college baseball firsthand and cover it for 7 years. And it was fun because I had not been around big time college baseball. When I went to Kent State, Danny, what was his last name? Danny Ford, Arkansas, Clemson. Danny, if you look up Georgia Tech baseball, I bet you're going to find a name, Danny. He took them to World Series and all this other stuff. Anyway, he was an up-and-coming coach who was the head coach at Kent State and took them to multiple NCAA appearances. And the Kent State baseball program was exceptional when I was there, and it even got better later. Can't think of the guy's name. It was Danny. And I had a coaching baseball class, actually, with him. But nobody cared. Nobody went to the games. And then I went, and that's when I was in school. And then I worked in news for 3 years. And then I went to Mississippi for my first sports job. And then I got enlightened to college baseball. The only contact I had with college baseball before that was seeing the World Series on TV. And I didn't pay that much attention to it. I was a huge baseball fan, but I watched the majors. And then I went down to Mississippi. Got to see a ton of future major leaguers play, and I went to a ton of regionals and super regionals and World Series, and it's fun. It's a good time. Golden Blue Dude. Chris, thank you so much for reminding everyone. Please hit the like button. Head on over to Golden Blue Dude's channel as well. Check him out. Good stuff right there. Gary. He complied with the subscribe, unsubscribe instructions. And people are probably going, what, huh? What are you asking us to do? Well, here's the deal. This is how YouTube works. We want 1,000 subscribers on every channel, okay? There's a lot of reasons for that. Let's just sum it up this way. YouTube takes you seriously when you get to 1,000 subs. Okay. We've achieved that here. We passed that up a while ago. We're in good shape, but we want to get to, I don't know. Next goal, I guess, is 50,000 subs. Let's get there this year. I would love to do that this year, 50,000 subs here. I would love to get to 100,000 would be a nice number. On the team channels, though, we've got various ones that are over 1,000, ones that are under 1,000. So what Gary is referring to is that I've begged and pleaded and gotten on my knees and said, please, 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 even if you don't like that team, subscribe. And even Miami fans have subscribed to Notre Dame channels and vice versa. And people have been really good about just subscribing to any old channel that they could care less about. Well, here's the deal. Once we get to 1,000 subs and we're safely over that mark, and if you're subscribed to a channel that you're not going to watch, please unsubscribe, because as it's been explained to me, YouTube penalizes. They just suppress you if you have channels with dead subscribers. Hopefully not physically dead subscribers, but people that don't show up and watch your videos and they're subscribed, basically YouTube is thinking, okay, he's got a hollow 2,000 subscribers because they don't show up and watch it. So we're not going to circulate the videos. We're not going to promote them. So please, if you don't watch videos on a particular channel and you're subscribed and we're over 1,000, please unsubscribe. Thank you, Gary. Gary's on top of it. Ed, thank you. Okay. If Golden Blue Dude is still here, I was on YouTube about an hour and a half ago, and up popped one of his videos, and it said something like 2014 playoff proposal. And I thought, what in the world? And so I have to admit, I did not watch it. I clicked it on. You'll probably get Chris, you'll probably get a view from me because I did watch enough of it, 30 seconds. So apparently I had to find out what this was all about. So apparently Ohio State Athletic Director Gene Smith proposed a 24-team playoff system. Okay. So I went to CBS Sports here, article by David Cobb, released 3 days ago. Ooh, can we make it through all this? Gene Smith suggested Tuesday at the Big Ten spring meetings that the college football playoff should have a greatly expanded role in major college football. Okay. The transfer portal, student athlete, NIL rights, chief among them, numerous changes need to be found. Okay. Okay. He suggests the FBS level should operate under the college football playoff. Okay. I will hold back judgment momentarily with its own rules and structure. Fine with that. While the NCAA would continue to host championships for basketball and Olympic sports. Okay. NCAA, bye. Do what you want with basketball, lacrosse. Good luck to the Big Ten championship game tonight going on, apparently. Okay. I don't care about any other sports. Okay. I don't know what that means exactly. I guess when he says under the college football playoff, like who's controlling that? The 13 people that select the playoff teams? When he says this all needs to come under the playoff. Okay. This is a quote from Gene Smith, which I wish I could show you. We can create our own rules, create our own governance structure, have our own enforcement. This is all great. It all sounds good so far. We have our own requirements, whatever they might be. That might be in the medical space. For example, if a student athlete is injured and hurt in his or her senior year, you take care of them when they're alone until they're healed. And we have the funding in place to do that. You don't touch anything else with the NCAA. You keep the academic requirements in place. The reality is those schools who offer 85 scholarships in football have made a different commitment, and that needs to be addressed. All right. So what I understand out of all that is basically he's separating football playing schools and non-football playing schools. So you'd have to go pretty far down the list. DePaul, basketball school, play a bunch of other sports, I'm sure, that they need to separate football playing schools. Okay. I'm on board with that. I didn't want to go through all this business about how he's going to structure this because, as he stated somewhere else, he's just throwing out ideas. So he hasn't thought this through completely. I want to get to the playoff. I'm not finding that. So I took it from Golden Blue Dude's video that there's a 2014 playoff proposal out there, but I'm not seeing it anywhere. Maybe it's in this article on SI. Let's go to the playoff part of this. All right, there's a lot of stuff here. It looks like a video, but I'm not finding the 2014 playoff. I could shoot down a 2014 playoff extremely easy, but until I see it, I won't do that. This also reminded me that I came across, Mark, be kind. I had a conversation with somebody today, and I let them know that I'm going to do my best on social media, and this is regarding non-sports topics. And you don't see this if you follow me on Twitter, because I rarely air my opinion on social issues on Twitter. Typically, that comes on Facebook. And I am respectful and loving and kind and all those things, but I'm very upfront, very opinionated about what I believe is just and fair and is pro-America and all of those things. So, but I let this person know I'm going to do my best to refrain if the conversation's not productive, if it's going to cause a big debate, argument, and nobody really gains from either side, then I'm just going to do my best to refrain and not just dive in unless I believe that I can truly be productive in the conversation and everybody can be informed and enlightened and benefit from that. I bring this up because I was going to use certain terms to categorize some folks on Twitter who post college football content on a fairly regular basis. And they post good information. They post a lot of information, okay, and much of it's good. This may turn into a segment here. Maybe I'll call it like Judgment Friday, or, you know, I'll refrain from using the word stupid, idiot, morons. For example, I saw a list of the top 100 coaches in college football, top 100 coaches of all time in college football. Saw this list. It was sent to me. Somebody sent it to me. I don't believe I follow this person on Twitter, or it's really not a person. They're a college football platform, whatever it's called. Somebody else sent me this list and said, what do you think of this list? Looked through it. It seemed somewhat reasonable. Before I started to pick it apart, I was looking for Urban Meyer. And you know how, if you're looking through a long list, 100 people, you figure, okay, I missed it. I got to go back through and find whatever I'm looking for. And I looked and I looked and I looked and I looked, and then I just kept. And I finally was like, okay, I'm going to go line by line, because where's Urban Meyer in here? Top 100 coaches of all time. Okay, he wasn't on there. Okay, was that a mistake? If it was a mistake, fine. I will address a video that I sent out this week where I made 2 mistakes in the video that I'll explain. Did I know the information? Did I know what I was talking about? Actually, yes. I just had a typo of the mouth. Actually, the videos in which you don't see any mistakes, you can assume that I probably didn't know the content and the information that well, and I looked everything up to make sure, and that's why everything was flawless and perfect, and all the information perfect in the video. The videos where I know the subject matter to an nth degree, and I just come on here and just spit it out of my mouth, those are the times I make the mistakes, because I didn't look anything up. All right. Anyway, no Urban Meyer in the top 100. I point this out. He's got the best winning percentage since World War II. He's 9-2 in championship games, New Year's 6 games, and playoff games. That's a crazy good number. And of course, 3 national championships. And so I never got a response in regards to, was this an oversight, or seriously, he's easily in the top 10 to 15 for sure. Despite his stupidity off the field. That was one. There was another one here recently with a Clemson person who took in some of our Clemson content. We did a live stream with Pigskin Pete and DeAndre and Jason Priester this week. Hope you caught that. It was a great discussion on Clemson football on Monday. And then I also posted a video about, is Clemson still elite, or has the decline started? 10-3 last year, not in the top 10, did not win the ACC for the first time since 2014. Has the decline started at Clemson, or is Clemson still elite? And if anything that I hate, it's being accused of saying things I did not say. Like, I did not say that. I did not say that. I did not say that. So I had to point those out to that individual. And then they finally were defending the ACC as just a great conference. Because there were 4 ranked teams last year. Who would they have been? Clemson, Pitt, Wake, NC State. Okay, great. 4 ranked teams. Okay, that means very little. There's all sorts of ranked teams. They play each other. Somebody has to win the games. Okay, got to look at the context of the rankings. The ACC is a bad conference. It's an awful conference. The potential's there. The ACC had a tremendous season in 2016. So some people every so often will jump on me for bashing the ACC, thinking that I hate the ACC or something. It has nothing to do with that. I was praising the ACC as having the best conference in college football on the field. I didn't believe that it was better than the SEC, but the results were better in 2016. So I praised the ACC. I just deliver whatever the results are. I just tell it like it is. And the ACC was tremendous in 2016. Since then, it's crashed. 7-19 against the Power 5 last year. I got to respond to this person to say, what are you talking about? You have no idea what you're talking about. The ACC's a bad conference, 7-19 in the Power 5 last year. And that has been repeated in terms of winning percentage for 5 consecutive years. So I'm going to feel like a bad person if I collect all the stupid comments every week and then I bash them and tear them to shreds at the end of each week, but it might be coming. So yeah, I would like to get to the bottom of this Gene Smith proposal because I'm not seeing anything about the playoff in particular. We diced it up quite a bit here. When was that? Thursday night on the NIL. Had a great response from all of you. We talked it through and we solved nothing, of course, but a lot of good ideas. I have my ideas. I clearly state that I don't know that they'll necessarily work exactly the way I roll them out, but I think they're worth looking at. And we went through that. Tampering. There's a rule against tampering. Let's try to do our best. It's not going to be eliminated. It will not be eliminated. But like speeding, you can catch somebody. You can catch 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 50. And you make it so damaging to that program that you send a message to everyone else. You're going to lose $5 million. You're going to lose 15 scholarships. You're not going to play in a postseason game for 4 years. Do you want that? Okay. No tampering. And again, difficult to track. But what has gone on with the NCAA in football for years and decades and decades and decades? At one point, and this is about the time that I was covering the SEC in the late 90s, there was not, I believe, there was not an SEC school that had not been on some form of probation in the span of the time that I was there for like 7 years. My goodness. I got thrown into the fire when I took that job. Ole Miss was that close to the death penalty. And I barely knew anything about Ole Miss football. And I took this job and boom, they're getting just slapped around by the NCAA. And I got to report on this and keep up with this and try to figure out what's going on. And this was a big deal. And I didn't really grasp the weight of it and didn't know the culture or anything. I did not try to fake a Southern accent, though. I didn't do that. All right. Oh, you know what? Oh boy. You know what I'm doing here? I have not caught up with the chat. I promised, I told somebody the other day, I had a number of people that told me when we were doing our channel update, Mark, you got to keep up with the chat. And I defended myself by saying, is there anybody on YouTube who goes through just about every comment Any comment that's where you guys are talking to each other, shoot, I don't look at those, but everything else, I address it. But of course, I get behind. So, all right, I'm going to keep up with everyone. With the time, I'm going to have to move ahead 35 minutes, but I am going to post this comment right here. Golden Blue Dude saying I need to get on a schedule where I deliver a video every week. That's my bad. I do try to make it for every live show for the West Virginia channel. Fridays at 8 Eastern time. It's a great show. Golden Blue Dude, Coos' Corner, Justin Walker, and also Travis Kenobi typically joins us. We had Mike Oste on from Pittsburgh. Something sports news now, something. And if you watch the beginning of the show, you'll know that I had his ID on the banner, couldn't find the banner, hadn't written down his site. So I'm like, Mike Oste joining us from, let me find the banner here. But anyway, Mike was phenomenal. And we hope to get him on our Florida State and Miami shows because he covers Pitt. They've got a game, of course, with Miami this season, and he covers Duquesne as well. Florida State's week 0 opponent. All right, I'm going to catch all the way up, but I got to catch these super chats, of course. Falconer Jones. Falconer X. Super sticker. I love the super stickers. And this guy is the king of the super stickers. And more than that, the man knows his turf. He knows football sod like nobody else. Scott, thank you so much for the compliment there. Good show, Mark. Whatever that means from whatever time, I'll take it. Scott is saying, what's up with our Gators and Billy Napier? Great day for Florida football today. 2 commits that came in. I may produce a video on that. The Gators today bring in Nigey Harris, interior offensive lineman, guard center, 6'3", 335, big boy, 4-star, 18th at his position, number 57 in the state of Florida, out of Bradenton. You've heard of this place, I believe, IMG Academy. He committed today. And also a commit coming in from Creed Whitmore, an athlete. So that typically means secondary player or wide receiver, typically. So I don't know much about Creed Whitmore out of Gainesville. So he's going to stay home. 33rd rated athlete in the country, number 423 overall, 78th rated player in the state of Florida, which he's the 3-star. This stuck in my head from the other day. 71 4 or 5 stars in Florida. That may be a video coming out as well, really giving context to how many prospects and the quality of prospects in each state. There were some alarming numbers for the likes of Big Ten country and some surprising numbers to me, even though I know about the power shift going from the east to the west and the north to the south in the past 3 decades and accelerating, but even surprised me. As for this season, Scott, I will certainly deliver my predictions in August. I think you get a good backup quarterback situation for Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson can cut loose now. Hopefully he stays healthy. At least one of those 2 5-star running backs between Lorenzo Lingard and Jordan Bowman. Not the other 5-star from Clemson. Anyway, the running back from Clemson. Who am I thinking of? The 5-star running back from Clemson. It's driving me crazy that his name slipped my mind. DeMarcus Bowman. DeMarcus Bowman. I got his last name. I mixed him up with our guy, Jordan Bowman. DeMarcus Bowman. Yes, the 5-star. So we've seen very little out of either Lingard, the Miami transfer, or Bowman, the Clemson transfer. You got to think 2 5-star running backs. One of them hits at least, if not both. Falconer Jones, thank you so much for that, for having the U helmet up front. Okay, so what we need to figure out here is who contributes based on helmet placement. If I could figure that out, then that's what would dictate helmet placement. I do know that our guy, we've got to keep Nevada up there prominently. Appreciate that, Falconer Jones. Cap is high on Utah. D is letting us know that Georgia is the #1 brand in college football. ESPN and TV networks already know it and adjusting to Georgia's new and trending popularity. Okay, I'm not discounting that, but you understand that there are other teams that are more highly viewed on television. If that's an indication, which I think it's a pretty strong indication, go look up the top 10 rated games of 2021. And Georgia's there, I think, because of some of the games they played in, of course. And I'm not talking about postseason games, because anybody who plays in the college football playoff is going to be playing in one of the most watched games of the year. Rott is telling us that the Gators have never had an IMG player, and Napier has signed 3 or committed 3. Committed 3. Still have to wait until December. Okay. All right. I'm getting bogged down again. We're going to have to catch up with the bottom of the chat here. Falconer. Athletic departments have separated from schools. Is this for money? Is liability? Athletic directors, departments have separated from schools. Is this for money or liability? It's a great question. I don't know. I did not even know that. Are you talking about what's being proposed or what's happened? Have separated from schools. Yeah. Miranda, appreciate you being here. Mark, your channel is great. I was unsure at first. Okay, well, I'm glad that you stuck with us. I would like to know, be interesting to know why you were unsure. Probably didn't like the glasses, right? I wear the glasses as infrequently as possible because I don't like wearing my glasses. But if I'm too lazy and don't put my contacts in, then I put my, so that's my guess. Or you didn't like the helmet placement, or you didn't like the calls from George. So Miranda, but the good thing is now you like the Clemson content with Jason Priester. Very nice. And that all has to do with Jason, of course. But we're here, and Miranda would like some more Clemson content, I guess. So we've got a Clemson channel, correct, Miranda? Okay, because you're going to see it over there more so than here. Joey's saying the voice of college football. GBD was talking about the Ohio State AD, yes, Gene Smith, wanting a 2014 playoff similar to FCS. Yes. I almost said something that I'm trying not to say because my knee-jerk reaction is just to say dumb. No, that's not going to work. 24 teams. I want to hear it. I would like to watch it. A lot of me would say, bring it on. Let's watch 24 teams in the playoffs. But there's so many reasons why that won't work. But I want to see the proposal first, but I can't find it online. As soon as I find it, I will address Gene Smith's 24-team playoff. Number one, if you are the Ohio State athletic director, why do you want a 24-team playoff? Your team can make a 4-team playoff and certainly is safe at 8 teams. They would have made every 8-team playoff since 2005, except for the Luke Fickell interim coach year. They would have made every 8-team playoff. They won the conference almost every one of those years, and they finished in the top 8 in the country. So that first is not self-serving, which I can credit him for that. But if I'm his boss, I'm saying, no, we don't need a 2014 playoff. Our team's going to make the playoff anyway. Why are you cutting us off and throwing a bunch of teams at us? Secondly, you have to have buys if you have 24 teams. Buys don't work. They do not work in college football. All right. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. Those kind of videos, I'm going to do more of those. Those are fun. My goal here is to produce 1 video a day for the main channel. And I kept that up for a couple days. That is tough to do because I'm shooting all these records and videos for all the other team channels. And so I would love to deliver 1 video per day. And on occasion, of course, also a call-in show. But if I can't have a video for a particular day, at least we can have a call-in show. So thank you for that. Dave says Urban top 25. I don't know how he's not in the top 10 easily. And the only thing that would not put him in the top 5 would be longevity, lack of longevity. Guys like Tom Osborne, Bobby Bowden, Joe Paterno have a huge amount of longevity on him. But in terms of concentrated winning, isn't he in the top 2? In terms of concentrated winning, he's got the best winning percentage of all time. Anyway, we don't want to get into that. Let's get to our next. We've got Falconer Jones. The NCAA is dead. And it really should be. It really should be. Tim is asking about tampering. What is tampering? Who's doing it? So, in the situations that we've seen in the news in recent weeks, of course, Jordan Addison being the most publicized, tampering is schools, coaches reaching out and trying to lure players at other schools to their school. That's tampering. That is tampering. MS. Who's better, the Big 12 or the ACC? The Big 12. Now, the new Big 12 is going to have difficulty keeping up at the elite level because of the absence of Oklahoma. Texas is a paper giant, of course. They should be great. They recruit great. They've got money. They've got facilities. They've got everything. But they've screwed it up for 12 or 13 years. So Texas basically removes brand, removes facilities, removes money, removes power, removes attention, removes the potential to be a great program on the field again. That's what Texas takes with them. Oklahoma takes the reality of being a great program with them to the SEC. And now what you've got in the Big 12, minus those two and plus the 4 coming in, is you've got an exceptional league. This league, this new Big 12, is going to be fascinating for people that just want to see competitive football. If that's what you're into, and you're not into, okay, who are the top 4 teams in the country? If you're into watching the top 30 teams in the country play, well, a ton of them are going to be in the Big 12. If Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, Houston stay where they are or get better because of what could be better recruiting, because they can say, okay, we're in the Power 5 and we're in the Big 12, and they can get a better quality level of recruit now. Look at this conference. Take out Oklahoma and Texas. Forget Kansas at the bottom. Maybe a Texas Tech to a certain extent. Everybody else. TCU, Oklahoma State, Baylor, West Virginia, Kansas State, Iowa State, and then you throw in these 4. Who's winning that conference? I don't know. No, but the issue is, how do they compete nationally at the top? None of them have ever been elite. Never. That's another stupid thing that I saw this week on Twitter. That comes to mind as well. When I was going through what stupid things I found on Twitter that maybe I build a segment around every week, that was something else. Somebody posted a bunch of teams that are not elite, not even close to elite. Michigan State, Stanford, TCU, and said something about, made a statement about, do these programs need 5 stars to become elite? Well, they're not elite now. Of course, they probably do need 5 stars to be elite, but they're not attracting 5 stars. They never have. They've never been elite. And then I got some pushback on Michigan State. Michigan State was elite. Okay. Michigan State had 3 consecutive years in which, if you isolated those 3 seasons, 2013, 14, and 15, you could make a case that they were elite in those 3 seasons. But think about it. Let's rewind to 2013. Michigan State wins the Big Ten championship, goes 13-1, wins the Rose Bowl, finishes in the top 3 or 4 in the country. Okay, is that an elite season? Absolutely. But a program doesn't become elite on one season. So then in 2014, they turn around, but Ohio State was much better. But Michigan State was still really good, 11-2, top 10, won the Cotton Bowl. Is that elite? It's close. Then in 2015, they win the Big Ten title. A bit of smoke and mirrors involved, but win the Big Ten title and get to the playoff, get smoked by 5 touchdowns, but get to the playoff. Is that elite? It's on the border. So the thing is, but if we rewind to 2013 and we're trying to determine, is Michigan State elite? Well, they have the one elite season, but that's not going to sell most people on a program suddenly being elite because of one great season. By the time anyone, myself for sure, would have determined, okay, Michigan State's in that conversation to start becoming, being called elite, they were no longer elite. So it was gone like that. By 2016, they went 3-9, never recovered, never became anything close to elite. I know they're coming off a really good year, but that was not elite. They lost by 7 touchdowns to Ohio State. Not elite. And then all these other, like TCU elite? No. What are you talking about? Okay. All right. So this is what happens when you got one of these trackpads and you whip this thing around just too much. You can wipe yourself straight off just out of nowhere. So anyway, we will catch up here. Ronan says it's only tampering if coaches have direct contact. If people are using third parties, that called negotiating, and it's normal in every walk of life. I can't substantiate that. That's what Ronan is telling us. I would have to look it up. I'd have to look up the actual definition, which I think we all understand the working definition of tampering. But in terms of a legal technicality, that may be true. I don't know. I will take your word for it. And if that's the case, then there's a way around it. However, I would still like to see that be addressed and vetted. Rowdy says, so super chats aren't getting read. Of course they're getting read. What have I missed? I've read like 5. I apologize if I've missed any. Rowdy, calm down. I'll get to the super chats. Thank you. But I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. Power 5 designation is going bye-bye in terms of the Big 12. Okay. Maybe. So let's understand this. Today, Power 5 designation means what? Means nothing. It's worthless. It does not mean anything. The College Football Playoff Selection Committee puts whatever teams they want in the playoff. It doesn't matter. Now, of course, there's a barrier, a challenge to getting in that we've seen finally broken by Cincinnati. But there's not a rule in place that says Power 5s get this, everybody else gets that. So whether, for example, the Big 12 is designated a Power 5 or not does not matter. Let's say the playoff structure and format does not change. The playoff committee is going to determine how good the Big 12 is, of course, and therefore, by extension, going to be determining how good the champion is and the second place team if they're, let's say, a one-loss team. But there's not going to be a rule. There is no rule to say, well, if you're in the Power 5, you're safe. So if you win a Power 5 conference, you're in. If you don't, then you have to fit in some other way. So there's no protection for the Power 5. So it doesn't matter if there's a Power 5 designation today. But based on those playoff proposals that we saw come out last summer, then it would matter. And somebody would have to make a call on whether the Big 12 is still a Power 5 conference or not. If the people in power know what they're doing and are able to use results and logic and metrics to make a call on that, then that conference that is left by the 2 losses and the 4 additions is just as good, if not a better conference today than the Pac-12. So it should not lose its Power 5 designation. Maybe it will. I can't answer that question. I can tell you how good the conference is, though. And the new Big 12 is still better than the current Pac-12. The problem is, as I stated a few minutes ago, the Big 12 will then be void of having that elite potential like exists in the Pac-12 with Oregon, USC in particular, and maybe even Utah, although they've never shown us that, but they've come close. Oklahoma State was elite for maybe 1 year. Maybe they were on the fringe this past year, and then you got to rewind 10 years. That was the other thing. Somebody was telling me, my goodness, what did I see? Oh, Oklahoma State was on this list of elite. And I'm like, how are they elite when they lose 3 or 4 games every year. They've not won a conference championship in 11 years. And they lose to their rival 90-some% of the time. That's not elite. And they'd only finished in the top 10, I think, twice in 10 years. That's not elite. So, Rowdy, my intent is to never miss a super chat. Shoot, I try to read every comment as it is, but we're going to stop that because I've been scolded by a lot of people not to read every comment because you guys all want me to keep up with the chat. So we're going to do that. I'll check the time. It's 9:14. So I'm going down to the bottom of the chat. Christopher is telling us that Oklahoma State is approaching elite status. If 2021 is an indication, I agree with you. But one season does not make a trend. Prior to that, they were nowhere close to elite. Nowhere close. Michael wants us to take calls. Does anybody else want us to take calls? We do have about 125 people on the line. So if we get other people that want us to take calls, we will take calls. Rowdy says Pac-12 is adding Oklahoma State and Texas Tech when their TV deal expires and negotiate a new deal. Well, if that happens, then I would hate to see that because to me, the Pac-12 is not Oklahoma State and Texas Tech, but we've seen the geography of it all not completely be blown up, but it's not functional. It's not what I like to see. I don't like to see West Virginia in the Big 12. I don't like to see Rutgers and Nebraska. They're more than a half a country away in the same conference. I don't even like to see, even though we've gotten used to it, Boston College and Miami in the same. Technically, they're on the Atlantic coast. If we want to stay with the names of the conferences, the ACC in particular is the one that obviously is tied to, along with the SEC and the Pac-12, Pacific 12 geographic regions. Technically, Boston College is more under the guise of being in the ACC, the Atlantic coast, than Louisville. How far are they from the Atlantic coast? 800 miles. Louisville, Syracuse. Rowdy's back in here. Then the Big 12 adds Memphis and Boise State. Yeah, those are decent adds. Boise State has certainly been a top flight football program. You wonder with the NIL, what is Boise State? What is their projection? How do they project with that issue? But man, you talk about a program that's been able to take 2 and 3 stars and make a heck of a program and make great coaching hires. It's Boise State. Memphis, good ever since Justin Fuente revamped the program and handed it off to Mike Norvell, and it's still decent. 6-6 last year. Bilal does not even consider Michigan elite. I don't either. I would have to see more seasons like last year. So one season doesn't do it. James is Texas A&M elite. They're recruiting like elite. They are not performing like an elite program. Jimbo Fisher is what? I believe his first year was 2018. So I think he went 8-5, 9-4, 8-5, 9-1, 8-4. That's not elite. He hasn't won anything. He's been fringe top 25 aside from the one season in the COVID year, which they played a weak schedule, that they went 9-1 and finished in the top 5 and won the Orange Bowl. That was elite, but it was 1 year. And other than that, Texas A&M has been, they've been Oklahoma State, or they've been Iowa. They've been North Carolina State. That's what the wins and losses are right now. But they're recruiting. They have all the pieces in place to be elite. Tons of money, tons of resources, facilities. They're in Texas. My goodness. They're in basically the best place to be. Texas, yes, Ashton. Texas A&M is the definition of 8-5. Kevin Sumlin finally got fired for continuing to go 8-5. They started like 5-0 almost every year, then hit the skids once they entered conference play and finished 8-5. Texas A&M, if you would look at everything besides the results on the field, Texas A&M looks the part of an elite program. And where did that come from? That came from moving to the SEC, having the popularity of a Johnny Manziel, and then hiring a coach and backing up a Brinks truck to his garage in Jimbo Fisher and packing out the stadium and having the look of an elite program, but not the results. According to the book of Mark. Sure. Christopher, Baylor is approaching elite status. No. Again, if you're going to bank on one season, but no. They went 2-7 in 2020. 2-7. Now, they had a nice season. They won the Big 12 championship. They almost got to the playoff. They still lost 2 games to, who'd they lose to? They lost to Oklahoma State in the regular season, and TCU. They lost to a 5-win TCU team. But yeah, they have an opportunity. I don't think they're ever going to get there. I would be surprised if Baylor is an elite team in 5 years. They've never been elite. They've never been really close. And when I say close, they've had seasons where they were close. But I'm talking about an extended period of time where they could say, we played elite football or near elite. We're approaching it in the last 5 years. That's never come close to happening. All right. Since 2016, the top 5 programs in terms of winning percentage. Bama, 78 wins. Clemson, 75. Ohio State, 67. Well, that's not winning percentage. Because I believe Ohio State's got a better record than Clemson. So understand they've played different numbers of games. So since 2016, it's almost better to look at the losses. That's not a winning percentage. Those are number of wins. Harry, I'm with you. That's one way to look at it, wins. But so, for example, since 2016, Clemson has lost 1, 3, 4, 6, 9 games. Clemson's lost 9 games since 2016. Ohio State has lost 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. They've lost 9. They both lost 9. And I believe I counted that up correctly, and Alabama has lost 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. So anyway, yeah, there you go. What messes up the wins total is the COVID year, of course. So Ohio State played what they play. They played 5 less games than Clemson that year. All right, I just got my word from Joey here. Got my marching orders. Might as well open up the phone lines. Let's hear who the elite teams are from everyone. All right, I thought it was my job to tell everybody who the elite teams were. Okay, I guess we're going to hear from you. I think it's pretty simple. Alabama's elite, Clemson's elite, Ohio State's elite, Georgia's elite, Oklahoma is on the edge. That's your list. That is your list. I don't think there's a huge debate there, but we can certainly have it. Most people are understanding of what elite means. There are a few people out there I'm finding out that just think it means you're good. You know, Penn State's elite. But you with me there? Yes. And I would have said that even before the national championship season for Georgia. As you guys know, to me, the national championship is extremely important. It's a huge indication, but it's the most overrated aspect in sports in terms of a college national championship because it's not a it's not an equitable system. And oh my goodness, what I'm working on here. We've got near misses during the college football playoff era. Boy, that's going to be a video that I'm going to love going through. Coming up, top 10 quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. Coming up. Oregon, top 5 newcomers. USC, top 5 newcomers. Tim, I got my list right there. SC, top 5 newcomers. And again, we've got a South Carolina channel, everyone, so please subscribe. Gary, you know the deal. Subscribe. Then when we get to 1,000, unsubscribe. Uncle Rico, yes, lists. I love lists. So lists and more lists. People like lists. That's what shows up all over the place, not just in sports, but all over the place. Top 10 this, top 10 that, top 25 that, 10 best this, 10 worst that. All right, let's see if we can get this call-in show deal going. All right, the balance appears to be a bit low, but I think we'll make it through. You really want to know the big reason why I get on here without firing up the call-in system? First and foremost, number one is that Felipe has not subscribed, but I hit the like button. Felipe, huh? How are we going to get to 100,000 subscribers without Felipe? How is that possibly going to happen? So, Zachary, no, Notre Dame is not elite. So there are basically two reasons why I do that until I know that you guys want a call-in show. Is that the meter's running, so I respect the meter. And that's one. Number two is that I don't want to put my earpiece in. That's the basic reason why. I will admit this is one problem we have when I fire up the call in midstream is trying to get it connect to the soundboard here. I think we're just going to take our first call, and sometime that gets it to roll. All right. Here we go. But before we take our first call, Bilal's here. So we will honor Bilal's super chat. Thank you so much for that, Bilal. Elite must include national championships, Heisman trophies, and consistently being a top 10 team. Over what period of time, though? Florida State won a national championship 8 years ago. Okay. What is the grandfather clause on national championships? Heisman trophies. Why? Why does that matter in being elite? Because a bunch of voters thought you had one player who was really good? Alabama, you understand, Bilal, Alabama had 0 Heisman trophies until 2009. More national championships than anyone, no Heisman trophies. So just because some sports writers don't want to acknowledge your best player or that you have the best player in the country, understanding that the Heisman Trophy, I think it's the most prestigious award in American sport just because of the history and because the acknowledgement of it, as opposed to who really remembers who wins the NFL MVP. Can you guys name Heisman Trophy winners? For those of you who love both the NFL and college football, can you rip off a ton of Heisman Trophy winners? I'm guessing yes. Can you rip off a bunch of NFL MVPs? Probably some, because they're kind of obvious. Peyton Manning's won a ton. Brett Favre has won a ton. Aaron Rodgers. Okay. But the acknowledgement is so much higher in college football. So it's more prestigious, but we're going to include sports writers voting on who they think is the best player in the country, who, of course, is always a quarterback, maybe a running back or a wide receiver, not any other position player. So it's saying that it's the best player in the country is a complete and utter joke to begin with. So, Bilal, I understand where you're going with that, except for the Heisman trophies. Who cares? Before I take the first call, when I said who cares, it reminded me that I had a conversation with somebody I know today because they run YouTube channels as well. And I'm going to have to ask everybody this. One of his most successful videos is, where is College Game Day going? Now, College Game Day is a phenomenal product. Believe me, I worked at the place for 19 years, and even though I had no contribution toward College Game Day, it's a phenomenal. And even way before I worked at ESPN, College Game Day was the standard, phenomenal, just tremendous show. I think we can all agree on that. Just first-rate quality sports content. Okay. But in terms of where they show up, I've never understood the fascination. And once we start the season, people will be calling me somewhat regularly asking me, Mark, where do you think College Game Day is going to be next week? My response is, this doesn't cross my mind. I could care less. I don't understand why anybody cares. Unless you're on campus and you're going to show up and think, oh, it'd be nice if College Game Day showed up in a couple of weeks for the Penn State game, and I'll go. But other than that, I never understood the fascination with where College Game Day is going to show up. Who cares? Like, I don't get that at all. That said, you know, you got to run these YouTube channels with all of you in mind. I'm really hard-headed, so I'm going to stop doing the content that I want to do, and I'm going to start doing the content that you want to do. So I'm going to do a lot of these stupid projections that you guys seem to like where is College Game Day going to show up? That's an easy video. I just got to go through the schedule, and it's pretty easy. Why anybody would watch a video when they know anything about college football? All you have to do is look at the 3 or 4 best games of the week, kind of strategize it, and look at it, and you can figure out where College Game Day is going to show up. They're going to show up at the best game, but they're also going to spread the wealth, and they're going to favor their games, ESPN/ABC, to a certain extent, but they do not in any way. They go to the SEC games that involve CBS, and they go to the Fox games on a regular basis. So that's not a huge factor, but probably leans them in one direction. And then when they see an opening to do something different, like go to a military academy and to honor them, especially in week 0, or of course, obviously following the season, they go to the Army-Navy game, those sorts of things. They'll do that. So they try to go outside the box, or they have in the last maybe 5 to 10 years more. But other than that, I don't get it. Just look at the best games of the week and understand they're not going to show up at the Alabama game 3 consecutive weeks. So they kind of chart it out. It's not difficult. All right. Welcome into the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hello, Mark. It's the real MVP. How you doing?
I am doing just fine. What's going on tonight?
Well, there's this, I guess you would call it, controversy with elite teams and what is an elite team and what it's not. So I thought I would call in and try to get my 2 cents on the equation.
I'll take all 2 cents.
So thank you. The first thing I would like to say is the time frame I'm using is just since the college football era started.
Okay.
It's cut, it's dry. We know who's in, who's out. We don't have to. That's a clear point in history. So that's why I'm using it. Now, believe it or not, for some of these teams, it was kind of hard to judge. But there's 4 teams that stand out above everyone else, and these are the 4 elite teams: Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Georgia. Those are your 4 elite teams. Any disagreement with those 4?
None whatsoever. I said the same thing about 5 minutes ago. Absolutely.
Okay. Now, here's where I guess you would consider some controversy. Here's teams that I would consider almost being in the elite tier, or the constantly great tier. LSU,
okay.
Notre Dame, Oklahoma.
Okay. All right. I was going to guess your list before you started. Oklahoma, Notre Dame, LSU. Well, LSU is kind of curious because, of course, if you're just looking at the playoff era, well, they had one remarkable season, but other than that, they haven't been really close at all to that elite status in any of those other 7 years.
Well, that's again why it was hard, because that one year they did make it and they won the title, and they just didn't win the title. They dominated. And I felt like if they had won a second title, I know that's a big if, but if they had won a second title, people would talk about them in the same breath as those 4 other teams. Yeah. So that's why they're almost there.
Well, they didn't just not win a title. They couldn't even get in the top 25 after that. Like LSU, I hear you. They recruit elite. They had a magical season. And they, of course, had a great team that made the BCS championship game just a couple of years before the playoffs started. But, man, those other 7 seasons, they are not even Wisconsin. Yeah, they're not even Wisconsin. They're, I don't know who they are, TCU? Miami?
That's brutal. Oh my goodness.
Well, they went 6-7 last year. They went 5-5 the year before. They had a nice season the year before they won the national championship. They finished 10-3, top 10 in the country, won the Peach Bowl. But if we start in 2014, 15, 16, those are 8-4 teams. They're not Wisconsin in those other years. Minnesota?
Yeah. Okay. So my next tier, Mark.
Yep.
Do you want to take a guess on it?
The next tier, so after Notre Dame, LSU, and Oklahoma, I'm going to say that you're going to go with Oregon, Penn State, Wisconsin, Texas A&M, and maybe Oklahoma State.
Well, see, that's interesting, Mark, because I'll be completely honest. I didn't have a single team you listed.
None of them.
Not one.
Okay.
None.
Okay.
And here's why. I had this tier. I call it the one-hit wonders tier.
I forgot Michigan. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, I had Michigan. I call this the one-hit wonders. They made it to the dance. They were there, but they were there for all of 5 seconds, and then everybody kind of forgot they existed. Yeah. This would be Washington, Michigan State, Cincinnati, and Michigan.
Okay, so you're putting a high degree of weight on going to a college football playoff once.
Yes.
To show that you
that is why we play the game, right?
Yeah. But all those teams failed miserably. So you're just and they're not consistent in their winning. So again, this is Michigan, Michigan State, Washington. All right.
No, Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Okay.
Everybody talks about going and making the playoffs and winning the title. So if you're going to do a list based on the college football playoff era, I think it'd be logical to put a lot of emphasis on making it there, because it's hard to make the college football playoff.
Okay. So if theoretically we've got a program that goes 2-10 every year, except for 1 year they go to the college football playoff, they would be in your near elite tier.
No, they wouldn't be in the near elite tier. Like, well, I think, you know how when you do rankings, you say people assume there's the same gap between 1 and 2 as there is to 2 to 3 as there is to 3 to 4. That's the way my tiers are. Okay. The tier 1 and tier 2 is kind of close to one another, but then after that, it just craters off the face of the earth.
Oh, okay. Oregon made a playoff, and they've generally been better than Washington. Well, they're better than Washington now. We could go back and forth. They've been pretty comparable during the playoff era, and Oregon went to the championship game.
Oh, I forgot about that. They'll be included in the list. We will include them. We will put them. Where we put them? We'll have Michigan State first, Michigan second, Oregon, Washington, and Cincinnati. That will be the order of that tier. And that is from most likely to make it back to the college football to the least likely.
Okay.
Did anybody else make it that I missed?
No. I do not believe so. No.
Okay. So, and then the final relevant tier is teams that can make it, but they kind of need everything to go right for them tier, which is your Penn States, your Wisconsin, Florida, Kentucky, Iowa, Auburn of the world, Utah, BYU. I mean, I could go on and on, but there's a lot of teams in that tier.
So another thing I take into consideration is if we're looking at a span of time, Alabama's the standard in terms of me making this statement. They're standard in a lot of ways, but also in terms of making this statement that if we're looking at the college football playoff era, Florida State went undefeated going into Florida State. They got to be on your list.
Oh, they make the playoffs?
Yes.
Okay, they'll be right ahead of Cincinnati, but behind Washington.
Okay. All right. Okay. I get what you're doing here. I don't agree with it, but I get what you're doing. Okay. So where was I going with this? Oh, so we're looking at a span of time of 8 seasons, right? 14 through 21, 8 seasons that for some of these programs, they are very different programs than they were 7 to 8 years ago. Florida State's not the same program today than it was then. We're not even talking about the same program. Alabama's exactly the same, pretty much. Clemson's pretty much the same program. Ohio State, even though there's been a coaching change, they've made a strong transition and without missing a beat for the most part. Oklahoma, okay. Actually, Georgia's in a better place. They upgraded, but they were really good then. But some of these programs are just, Florida State would be the prime example. When you bring up Florida State, or I brought them up because they made the playoff, they're just a different. Like I'm talking about right now. Who's elite right now?
Well, that would be Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State.
Okay. I agree with that.
The
That's
four.
my list.
Well, they're also the 4 most likely teams to make the playoffs this coming season.
Yeah. There's good reason for that.
I don't think that's a coincidence.
No.
And plus, since this playoff era has started, I mean, there's a lot of, just within the college football community, there's a lot of talk about making the college football playoff, how many wins you got in the college football playoff. Everything is more driven toward the college football playoff. Bowl games have become basically meaningless. Even New Year's Six bowls and stuff like that. So why should I put much weight into them? If the players don't care, then why should I care when ranking the teams?
Sure. And again, you have your system, and I believe I understand it. To me, Texas A&M is much closer to elite than Florida State.
If you were to ask me for this upcoming season, who is more likely to make the college football playoff, then yes, Texas A&M is the answer. But that is not the question because I am not projecting forward. I am looking back.
I'm not projecting either. Texas A&M's been a better football team than Florida State for the past 4 years. So they would be much higher in my rankings.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. And to be honest with you, I don't have an issue with you doing it that way. I just think, I think I would just do it, provide a different perspective when it comes to rankings. Now, there isn't a right way or a wrong way.
No, there's not, unless there's absolutely just no sense to it. But absolutely,
Right.
I get what you're doing. Actually, Fatal Gator is asking, Mark, ask DeReal where he put USC.
USC, I actually did rank. Oh, they're below all the teams I ranked. They're in the same tier, in my opinion, currently, right now, as Louisville. They had it, Louisville had that good run back in 16. No, Louisville had that good run back in 16. People think that's disrespectful. But do you know over the last 10 years, Louisville has the third most wins in the ACC?
In the ACC, yeah. Louisville Louisville had a run in 2016, and yeah, they took a really good shot at Clemson. And actually, I'm very familiar with that, having watched the game, but also having worked on something that I'm going to cut a video on. That I'm right there with you in terms of Louisville being, and of course Lamar Jackson at the controls. They were very exciting, but they weren't really that good. They were okay. They lost by 3 touchdowns to LSU in a bowl game that year. They were okay. They were top 25 good.
Well, in my opinion, after that Clemson game, Louisville gave up because they realized they couldn't make the college football playoffs.
Well, regardless.
Now that's my opinion, but
yeah, we have no
USC
idea. I judge the teams based on the results. To me, USC was so much better in 2016 than Louisville. Yeah.
Right. Well, again, it goes back to my thing about the bowl games.
I'm going to ask you one question, then I'm going to move on. If the players, let's understand this though. When, let's say we're going to flip on the Sugar Bowl and 3 guys with Ole Miss opted out and 3 players for Oklahoma State, whoever they're playing. Got to understand, we do have 50 some players in this game plus that are going to participate and try really hard that did not opt out, and they care. So when you say the players don't care, we're talking about like 2%.
Yes, but you also have to admit that those 2% are usually the best 2%.
Yeah, they are.
Right.
So I'm going to leave
they were bench player.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm going to leave you with one thing, and then I better get to these other calls. So if the college football playoff era, so here's my issue with I have a lot of issues with your system, but again, I understand what you're doing. If the college football playoff was 50 years old and somebody made the first college football playoff and were horrible ever since, they would rank higher than a team that was really good, that had yet to make the college football playoff.
Well, okay, so 50 years, first off, is a long period of time. There's just too many subjective things, I guess, is in your question that you didn't like. What's really good? What's terrible?
Okay.
And all that stuff.
The team that made the first playoff they have been Rutgers ever since. And the other team that has yet to make the playoff in the last 5 or 6 years, they've turned into Wisconsin. They're going 10-2, 9-3 every year.
Okay, so because based on the system I'm doing, and which is my system, Wisconsin, in my opinion, doesn't have a real chance to make the college football playoff. So that first team that stunk would still be ahead.
Okay, you lost me on that, but that's fine. So Wisconsin one year went 13-0 and lost the Big Ten championship by 6 points. They came that close to making the playoff.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I was thinking of that one year where they lost by like 40 bajillion points to Ohio State. Yeah. I forgot about that game, to be honest. So I get what you're saying with the larger sample size. We would have more to determine it based off of, but this is only 8 years.
I got you.
I mean, if it was 20, 25 years, I probably would change the orders up, but it's only been 8. It's a very small sample size, especially for the history of college football.
Absolutely. All right, DeReal. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, you do the same. Hit the like button.
All right, let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. I always like when I get my cue from everyone when to move on. And Jim likes my glasses. No, he loves the glass. He loves the glasses. I saw some good comments in here, but I have yet to get to them. All right, I will. But first, to the phone calls. Next up at the Voice of College Football, who's on the line?
Good evening, Mark. It's J-Dub. I hope you're having a good evening.
I am, J-Dub. How you doing?
Well, I have to confess that I failed. I tried to be a hero to the chat section and intercept the real MVP and not let him be the first caller tonight, but I was not quick enough. There's some confusion, I think, between what is elite, what is consistent, and what are blue bloods. And you can pick and choose little 7 or 8 year clumps of time, like DeReal wants to pick out, the college football playoffs, or you could pick out the BCS period, or you could pick out 75 to 85. You can pick out your little chunks. I'm going to go back to 1936 and go forward, because that's the Associated Press poll. For all its flaws, that's the modern era of football. 36 to today, 85 years. If you've been in contention for the national championship 4 or 5 of those years, that's good for your program, but it represents about 5% of the time. There's only a few blue bloods. There's only a few elite. There's a lot of teams that are good and consistent, but there's only a few elite. And the more teams you add to the elite, the more you water it down. But the University of College Football is Alabama. And Ohio State is in that grouping. And I would argue and here goes everybody going to scream now, but over the history of college football, you got to put Oklahoma and Notre Dame in there. And I think you could make an argument to go out to 5 or 6. You would have to say Nebraska, USC. That's it. Everybody else has been consistent. They're good. They're above average or whatever. They're not blue bloods. What's your overall winning percentage? What's your national championships? What's your major bowl wins? Who did you beat in those bowls? How many conference championships do you have? That's who your blue bloods are. And I think that's it's clear. It's Alabama, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Notre Dame are the 4 clear teams at the top of that list. Would I wonder your take on that?
Yeah, if we're talking about all time, I believe I've got a list.
Yes, I am. I'm saying when you're talking about a blue blood, I'm saying you're talking about programs in the history of college football, not who got hot in the last 5 years.
Sure, Clemson.
And nobody ever heard of them before then.
Yeah.
Who does your uncle remember being good that's still good today? Who did your grandpa who say was a good team and they're still good today? That's who I'm talking about.
All right. So for me, when you say 1936, you gave a definitive year because you explained why, and I get that. I went through the practice of, and you may have seen some of the videos or the call-in shows where I went through all these metrics on national championships, conference championships, winning percentage, all this stuff. And I came with all sorts of lists. And yes, if you go to the very first college football game that was ever played in 1869, it took me until sometime in the 1920s where I couldn't just lay down a gauntlet and say in 1925 college football truly started, but you saw a place where they finally started to play enough games. I'm not going to get, too worked up about in 1897, there were a lot of teams that went 2-0-4 and 2-0-2, and they hardly had any teams or played each other. We finally got to a place where we had enough teams playing enough games where I said, okay. And it was so close to 100 years. I thought, you know what? I'm going to start counting these national championships 20 or 100 years ago. But 1936, absolutely. And you see these things come out from time to time, and I've posted them as well, did in these rankings, that the AP itself will come out with a point system that's based on where they have placed the teams each and every year. If you finish number 25, you get 1 point. If you finish 24, you get 2 points. And again, you made a clear statement when you started. The polls are flawed, but they are still a strong indicator. I make fun of them. I tear them to shreds and all of that, but I still use them, because if you finish number 5 in the country, you can't go 7-5 and finish number 5 in the country. And we can argue, we can look at any particular year and you argue whether the number 5 team in the country should be 7 or 4 or 9, but not much more than that. You have to be pretty damn good to finish number 5 in the country. Now, number 25, the issue I have is that we stop at 25, and you've got another 15 teams that are generally as good as number 25. But that's the only issue I have with it from that standpoint. But if you finish safely within the top 25, then you have earned it. So that's why that's valid over time. And it's easy to see Alabama, Ohio State, Oklahoma, those 3 in particular, are way out and ahead of having the most points in the AP poll over those 80 plus years. For a number of different reasons, my list is Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, USC, Oklahoma, Texas.
Okay.
All time.
Yeah.
In Nebraska and Penn State, they're there as well. I guess I go out to 9 if I include Penn State, Nebraska.
Right.
Penn State got a late jump on all this. They're more Paterno on.
Well, the reason why I tried to cut it at 5 or 6 is because at the moment you've got 130 teams playing at the top level. And so, 10% of those teams give you 13. You cut that in half, you've got, more or less 5 or 6 teams that are in the top 5%. If you're not in the top 5%, you can't use the title elite or blue blood. Otherwise, you're lessening what that title means. If there's 28 chiefs in the tribe of 100, then it doesn't really mean much if you're a chief.
Sure.
There has to be some line of demarcation. That doesn't mean what Clemson has done recently, what Georgia has done recently. LSU 3 championships under 3 coaches in the last 20 some years or whatever. It doesn't take anything away from them. It just says they haven't done it over a long enough sustained period, over a stretch of 85 years. I mean, Georgia's had a phenomenal last 10 years. But prior to that, you had to go back to Jimmy Carter before anybody was wondering whether Georgia or not was going to be a serious national championship contender. So, it's not to take anything away from them. They're a great program. But you're talking about the very thin, the very top level. And that's where you can't say, well, like DeReal kept adding all these teams. Well, they're the next tier, they're the next tier. I don't care who the next tier is. I don't care who the next tier is. If you're not a blue blood, then you're just one of the other teams, and you can all argue over whether you should be number 11 or you should be number 12 or whatever. That's fine. I'm just trying to define who I think the top 5 or 6 teams are, and then you can hash out everybody else. I don't care.
The only pushback I'll have to that, J-Dub, is that I understand that you're using the term elite, for what it really means. As you state, I get in conversations with people all the time, and their list gets to be 15 long, and it's like, well, is this truly elite when you're talking about going 8-4 on a consistent basis, that you're elite? But if the
it just means you're Iowa.
Yeah, in my example, in my list, if you are trying to keep that in the 4 or 5 range, but if 6, 7, 8, and 9 are razor close and right there with 4 and 5, then to me, it's not so much about the number, it's about hitting a certain status and having those national championships, conference championships, winning percentage, all of that. And if number 9 is razor close to number 5, that's what extends me out there, because I think there's a huge not huge distinction. I think there's a clear distinction with Alabama and Ohio State and maybe Oklahoma, and then it starts to move down from there. But I think the rest of those teams in different ways are extremely close.
Yeah, and I hope I don't want to come off. I don't want to make it sound like I am lessening the achievements of these other teams. That's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is preserve the integrity of the top few by not making the top few become the top many. And that's my argument. I mean, at some point you have to say, this is where we draw the line. And national championships, bowl victories, what will you consider major bowls, wins in the major bowls? Do you win your conference? Yeah, that's where I'm saying that's what separates the difference. And everybody's going to scream, but Alabama's got 29 SEC conference championships. The next 2 are Georgia and LSU, or Georgia and Tennessee. I know Georgia has 13. Somebody else has 13. It might be Tennessee, yeah. But the next 2 equal 26. Bama's got 29. So don't come to me and tell me who the power in the SEC is, because that 29 represents a long stretch of time where Georgia and Tennessee and LSU were in the conference with Alabama, but they weren't winning it. Alabama was winning it. So, I mean, and Ohio State's Big Ten championships, the same thing. And Oklahoma's championships in the Big 8 and the Big 12. The top 3 or 4, you start looking at the major achievements, that's where they separate themselves. That's where they pull themselves away and make the gap between the really good teams that are right there and the teams that are right there and do it.
And you make a good distinction.
I'll get out of the way. I know you got to.
Well, I'll make one other point to extend on a point that you made. You make a good distinction between major bowl wins and just bowl wins, because, again, it's not a perfect distinction, because you could play in the Citrus Bowl and be playing a great team, and there are exceptions, but generally, if you just go to bowl wins, you're going to see a lot of programs that consistently play in 2nd and 3rd tier bowl games, and they play a bunch of 8 and 4 teams a lot, and they rack up bowl wins, versus, I'll take Ohio State, for example. It's been forever since they didn't play a top 5 to 10 team in the country in a bowl game. So it's tougher to win those games,
right,
and they should be worth more than, playing, barely playing ranked teams in bowl games in the Independence Bowl every year. All right, J-Dub, I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much, Mark. Hey,
Sure.
Everybody, if you've got time to type, if you've got time to comment, you've got time to hit the thumbs up. Let's do it and help Mark out. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, J-Dub. Have a good one. Let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football, and I will be checking out the chat, and I will be on time with the chat, because I've been chastised for that recently. All right, welcome in. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Willie.
Hey, Willie.
How's it going today? You've got a good show going here.
Appreciate that.
And I didn't want to talk to you about the elite team because I'm a Buckeye fan and everybody's calling in and saying we're elite. I wanted to ask you about your Patreon picks. Okay, can I do that?
Sure.
Okay, when you make your picks, do you give value for some team picks over others, or are they all just the same?
They are all the same. I am not an odds maker or a handicapper. I just pick all the top 25 games straight up and against the spread.
Okay, I was just wondering that. And I also have a few comments. I think USC, if he can just keep the players, a few of the players from leaving California, he will replace the ACC in the playoffs. That's my prediction. And I have another prediction about the NFL draft. I think the biggest bust in the draft will be the receiver from USC. He only played 20. I think he played 22 games in his career at USC. Now, if you're injured in college, that is not translating to a long pro career. That's my thinking on that. I mean, he only averaged 12 yards a catch last year. But I do think USC is going to be a force to be reckoned with in a few years in college football, if not sooner. I mean, they got a great school there, and they have a lot of money. And money seems to be a major factor with players these days. Now, I wanted to also ask you about Ohio State's schedule this year. Which game did you think was going to be the toughest for us to win? We got Notre Dame, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Notre Dame all at home, at Penn State, and at Michigan State. Which one do you think is going to be the toughest one to win?
Well, a lot of people tend to go to the road schedule to find the toughest games, but I don't think that's as much of a factor as a lot of people do. It is to a certain extent. I do think that because they're installing a new defense with a new defensive coordinator and with no preseason games, that playing Notre Dame in week 1 is obviously a test. They don't get a warm-up to try out the new defense and work out the kinks against live competition, against, well, we're using the word near elite competition for week 1. So I think that one's tricky.
And what time is that Notre Dame game going to be? Do you know? Is it night or is it noon or 3:30? Or
I don't think they've scheduled any of those games. I'll look it up here, but I don't think it's scheduled.
And I'm one of the guys, I'm really not interested in college game day. I like to see who the celebrity guests are. That's my only interest in college game day. They seem to have some crazy fans at them. I also like the signs. So I like that. But I really don't have too much to talk about other than the fact it's how great your show is and how non-biased you are to all the teams. You are more than fair to every team in college football and all their fans. And you put up with a lot of callers. Maybe me, maybe some of these other guys. But I just can't tell you how much I enjoy your show. I'm 73 years old, and I really look forward to it.
Well, Willie, we appreciate you being here.
I'll get off here and let somebody else call in. Okay, I'm just waiting for the season to start.
We all are, Willie.
Have a good one, Mark.
All right, appreciate you. Thanks for calling. All right, Uncle Rico put in the chat. So I was going to say the same thing. That's what I heard. But I didn't want to pass on incorrect information because it's not on the schedule on ESPN. They don't have any times listed on ESPN. For any games, but Fox Noon Kickoff has Notre Dame Ohio State game, and I have heard the same. And when that came out a few weeks ago, we had that on our Ohio State channel. This is kind of strange. So the only game in week 1, September 3rd, that's listed for a game time, that has a game time on ESPN's listing. I had to check on this game. I've never heard of this team. Do you know who Northwestern is playing in week 1? So Northwestern plays the game in Ireland against Nebraska. Then they come home, and in week 1, Northwestern plays Augsburg. I don't know that I've ever heard of this school. They don't even have this. They are so obscure that ESPN doesn't even have an emblem, like where they have the schedule lists and they've got an emblem, a logo next to every team. They do not have one for them. So I thought it was like some kind of weird something. I didn't know what it was. So I clicked, and you know how you can click on every team to go to their team page? Even the FCS teams, you can click on the link to go to the FCS page. Like if it's North Dakota State, this team is so irrelevant. They don't even have a page for them. Wow. What is going on at Northwestern? Why was this game scheduled? All right. Next up here at the Voice of College Football, who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Tim.
Hey,
How you
Tim.
doing?
I'm doing well. I am now planning my Northwestern Augsburg preview.
I can't wait. Yeah, I'll be looking for that one.
Okay. I thought so.
And with you were talking earlier about College Game Day, and I mean, I do prefer the Fox show, especially if they get Urban Meyer back on there. But I've always, talking football wise, I've always enjoyed that one better than College Game Day, just for the talk from the analysts for obvious reasons. But really, it's an infomercial. That's why people want to see it. If you get College Game Day at your school, especially the schools that don't get them very often, that's really good pubs. Like, it's like free recruiting for your
Sure.
university.
I understand that. I don't understand the average fan caring.
Have you ever been to the game day?
No.
Well, I've been to a bunch of them, like at least 4 or 5 at USC, and then I can't remember. I think it was one at Arizona State for some reason. I can't remember game day. They're fun. They make it. It's like a little.
That again is not my point. I'm not talking about going to game day. I'm talking about people that will not go to any game days care about where College Game Day is going to be. And there's nothing wrong with it, but I'm just saying, like the SC1 sports guy, he posted a video, and this is like his most popular video is, where's College Game Day going to be? First of all, if you have half a brain, you can look at the schedule and pretty much pinpoint 3 games every week. And then it obviously depends on how the season goes, but people love watching these videos. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying there's right or wrong. It's just, I don't have the same perspective as most sports fans, I don't think, because I could care less for a college game. Yes, if I was on the Penn State campus, I would care if they were coming, sure, to show up and have a good time. But I'm just talking about people that just sit at home and watch.
Yeah, good point. But we're thinking, I mean, I always talk with Ben about stuff, and we're thinking about, the Washington State flag that flies at every game. We have to get a Mark Rogers TV Voice of College Football flag we can fly in the background.
Yes. Yes.
And then we'll FedEx it to each other each week, and whoever has game day, then let's say it's at Michigan, then we'll FedEx some person over in Ann Arbor, and then they FedEx it back over to someone at in Tuscaloosa, and then you just keep chucking it around.
Hey, and if you guys can't pull it off in terms of getting that FedEx back and forth, shoot, I should be able to send everyone an individual flag. I have thought of that for the last few years. When I see game day, I thought, man, wouldn't it be phenomenal? It's just like somebody called Feinbaum. This was probably about 3 years ago, and mentioned me. And somebody told me, and I was working at ESPN at the time, so I could find the clip because we have a database. You could look up any show at any time, even if it was a year old, and find it and watch it. And so they told me where to find it, what day it was on, and I found where somebody called in and mentioned me on Feinbaum's show. And so I thought, man, wouldn't that be phenomenal if I asked everybody, call Feinbaum, call Cowherd, just call these shows and just mention.
You just name drop, yeah.
Yes, name drop.
Because people will look you up.
Because somebody called up and they said, and Feinbaum kind of like, he was coming off another call and he wasn't totally paying attention. And the first thing out of the person's mouth was, I saw on MarkRogersTV where he said, da, 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 da. And he goes, oh no, the first thing they said was, I'm sure you know who Mark Rogers TV is. Well, he said LSU in Florida, something, and Feinbaum's like kind of like looking like what? And then he answered whatever the question was. So it was funny.
And that's all it takes. Everyone's got, they're watching game day. They get their cell phone in their hand. They see Mark Rogers flag. Who the hell's Mark? They'll look you up. And then, who knows? There's enough eyeballs. Just do the numbers game, right?
That would be phenomenal. Exactly.
So anyway,
that's what we need to do. Grassroots support. Sure.
Yeah. I'm totally off. And I really enjoyed, who was that last caller that just called in?
That was
the Ohio State fan? Willie. Good call, Willie. Yeah, I enjoyed that call. But one thing he's wrong about Drake London.
Oh, I knew
you can't look at London's numbers.
I figured he would jump on that. Go to it.
Well, I am taking my USC glasses off. I think anybody who watched Drake London play last year, they're not going to look at the box score. They're going to go, this dude is dominant. He's fast. He's a basketball player. He's just got that. I'm blanking on his name. I actually used to play basketball with him way back in the 90s. He played for the Bears, tight end. He was for the Chiefs.
Wait, 90s Bears?
Tony
Gonzalez?
Tony Gonzalez, thank you.
Falcons. Chiefs.
Okay, I'm not saying he's Tony Gonzalez. I'm not saying that's what he is. But I'm saying those basketball players of that size, they can go up and be physical, and get the ball and are athletic for their size and their speed. He's not a tight end, London's not. He's more of like a, if Gonzalez was an SUV, he's more of like a hybrid. He's kind of in between, and I've seen him go up for balls and make catches with his hands. Like the dude that got strong hands, he's just got outside the world skills. And that kind of thing transfers over into football really well. He was a two-sport. He was on the SC basketball team as well. And then someone said, hey, man, you're going to make a lot of money in the NFL. You need to focus on football. And that's what he did. And he just spun it around. And that injury he got, he's not an injury-prone guy. I was always worried about him. He took so many hits. Like, if that dude doesn't get down in the NFL, because he's strong as hell. He's a horse, and these safeties and corners are bouncing off the dude. But he's got to learn to get his ass down. Otherwise, he's not going to be, not for long if he's doing that kind of stuff in the NFL. But yeah, he's durable. He's a stud. He's got great hands. He's athletic. He's going to be, he's a steal, even where he went. He's going to be a name for a while in football, I believe.
Well, I was going to say, Tim, that a lot of people that I talked to this past season that are obvious, strong college football fans, because USC was so bad this year, I can't think of a season when USC was as far off the radar as they were this last year. And then with the COVID year being what it was and only 6 games played the year before, he slid by a lot of people. A lot of people did not know how good he is because of those 2 reasons.
Well, and also he played in, I know I don't want, the Golden Blue dude and all the West Virginia fans come after me, but maybe this was a bad mix for Graham Harrell, but Graham Harrell's offense didn't really do us much of a favor, last year. It was pretty rough. As soon as London went down, this shows how great he is. As soon as London went down, they literally went to a running game. We just had to run the ball because they just could not make it happen through the air. So, again, that guy playing catch, I don't know. It's a long time since he's that dominant. He reminded me like a Mike Williams, type guy who would just be out physical everybody. He was a lot like that at USC. But I hope he has a better pro career than Mike Williams. But anyway, I'm way off topic. They call. Oh, so Mark, I thought this is where I was going. I figured you would think this is where I was going as soon as I called. Let's talk about the tampering thing. Because first off, let's just one thing. I threw it to you in I think I can't remember, either on the Patreon or in Twitter, but I asked you this question straight up. You are Addison's dad. Okay, you're his dad. He's going into his junior year. He's going to have to be the NFL. They're projecting him top 10. There's only one direction for him to fall. But you're Addison's dad, and you're saying, okay, you lost your offensive coordinator. Whipple's gone. You lost your wide receivers coach. You lost your quarterback, the first round in the NFL. And you hung around for spring ball. Things looked pretty bad. You know, the savior is looking pretty bad. What would you want him to do? You think he should stay at Pitt and be the company guy, or you think he should look out for his NFL interests and go find somewhere better?
No. I'm not talking about transferring. I'm talking about tampering. Those are two different things. If the athlete comes to a determination, this is not the place for me for whatever the reason, they have that ability to move on. But to have other coaches contact them while they are, quote unquote, employed on scholarship at another university. Can you imagine if this just was rampant all the time, and maybe it is at this point? Where do you really think of, so you put me in the place of Jordan Addison's father. Okay, well, they can have that discussion whether he's the Bolitnikoff Award winner. He knows that he's valuable and he's going to be accepted by anybody in the country. So he's not the 3-star who's the third outside linebacker at Texas Tech, figuring out whether he's got a place in a future at Texas Tech, and he's thinking about, can I enter the transfer portal? Am I going to be able to find a spot? We're talking about the elite of the elite. Okay, he's got no issues with whether he's going to find a place. So they can make that decision on their own without anybody contacting them, and he knows I'm going to be able to pick and choose. But can you imagine, you put myself in the place of Jordan Addison's father. Absolutely. I want what's best for my son. I want us to be thinking about, sure, we want to be loyal to a team and to a coach and all those things and respect relationships that were built. But by and large, it's all about setting him up for the future and the best professional career you possibly can. Absolutely. Put yourself, though, in Pat Narduzzi or any other college coach's situation. Every time you go to practice, every time you're in the locker room, you survey that locker room and think, there are guys in this locker room, there might be 10, 12, 50, 60 that are hearing from Lincoln Riley. And I'm just throwing out names. Dave Aranda, I shouldn't even put names out there. Whatever the coaches, they've heard from 5 coaches. All of them have heard from 5, 6, 10 coaches this week. They're talking to my players, trying to lure them away from my team and my program. Is that right? I think
absolutely not.
There's a reason there's a rule against tampering.
Yeah, I'm totally against it. But I mean, I'm going to put it this way.
So I don't have an issue with him transferring. I don't have an issue with that at all. My point is no, I've been seeing a lot of talk like, well, you know, USC's throwing $3 million at him in the mansion, blah, blah. I would be dead honest. But the reason why I had my question for you is let's just do that. Forget the tampering for a second. Okay.
You're his dad. He can go back to Narduzzi and what OC they get at Pitt?
That's a good question for Mark Whipple. I don't know who their new OC is. I'll look him up.
Yeah, that's my point. I don't think anyone really does. You know, so my point is this: you could go to this guy's offense, right?
I don't think this is right. Matt Canada, he's with the Steelers now. He used to be their
No, it's not Canada.
That was what Google threw me, but that's obviously wrong because he was there like 5-6 years ago. Frank Signetti, I remember him from, let's see where he's been. Anyway, go ahead.
Boston College.
Yeah.
I think Signetti's from Boston College. Yeah, because I looked it up. I had to look it up. Sorry, that wasn't off the top of my head. I mean, I heard the name. I knew the name, but I couldn't. If you'd asked me like a week ago, where is Signetti? That's right. I would have been able to tell you, but I looked it up. So you're the dad, or you're Addison, you know, and you're there, and you're saying to yourself, okay, I'm going to go play in this dude's offense because again, a lot of what made all those catches happen, right, was Whipple's offense and having a great quarterback. And then now all of a sudden you lose him. You lose your quarterback, you lose your wide receiver coach. You're starting all brand new over for your junior year. I'm saying this whole USC bought him crap, right? That's like me saying, let's say Ohio State's going up against I don't know, I don't want to insult anybody, Indiana, all right? And they go, well, there was only the Ohio State was because Ohio State gave him $3 million. My point is, number one, no one knows how much money was offered to this guy. No one knows that. But if you look at anyone that wants to go be a receiver, who would you rather be a receiver for? Signetti or for Riley? Which offense do you think is going to showcase your talents better? And then do you want Slovis as your quarterback, or do you want Williams as your quarterback? The decision, however it came to it, there's tampering, whatever, it's fine. The decision is not because he's go chasing money. He's going to put himself in the best spot to be drafted to make real money a year from now. And the whole tampering thing is Mark, you have to know that for not just recently, forever with the transfer portal, these players don't just jump into the portal. You know, the six guys went to Alabama. You think they just jumped into the portal, think, okay, where am I going to go? You know, they're going to go look for their best opportunity. And so they talk. And these guys from the 7-on-7 circuits, from going to these all-star games and stuff, they all know everybody. And that guy's from around the DC area. And Williams did know Addison well. And I'm sure they talked. I might even say, yeah, sure. Maybe he was urged to talk to him. But if you're a quarterback, wouldn't you want Addison to throw to? Wouldn't you pick the phone up and say, hey man, why don't you come on over? That is completely legal. I don't think you're inferring that Riley called Addison, are you?
I'm not inferring anything. So a lot of things have been out there about what possibly happened. I don't accuse anyone of anything until I know something. Now I draw up possible scenarios. And so also, Tim, you got to understand, and I'm sure you do, that everything that you outlined about the decision that he may have made based on the skill and the talent and the ability and the situation at USC, that all can be true, and the money could be in play as well. Both things can be true.
Absolutely. But my point is that's just icing on the cake. You're not going there to make this between 1 million and 3 million. You're going there to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL. You know, that's my point, Mark. You know, being like a top 10 pick, there's only one direction you can fall. Right?
Yes. However,
so I'm just saying, stick it around.
He can also certainly stay at Pitt and be selected 10 spots lower in the draft. We don't know that. There are all sorts of position players at marginal teams that have been selected high in the NFL draft. And especially coming off the season he had as a junior, I think an NFL scout would understand, okay, what is he showing us on tape? He didn't get the opportunities because they went from Pickett to Slovis. They went from Whipple to Signetti, and they don't have the options around him to take attention away from him. So he didn't catch 100 passes. He caught 84 passes. The scouts can look through all that. Now, I'm not saying that you still don't go to the best situation possible, but he doesn't need to go to USC to be a first-round draft pick.
No, absolutely not. He's already a first-round draft pick. I mean, that's you know.
But you're right. That could be the difference
barring
between
some kind of injury.
That could be the difference between being the 5th pick in the draft and the 25th pick in the draft.
Exactly. Right. And nothing's given either, right? Nothing's a given. It doesn't mean he's going to be better. Maybe he would have a better season at Pitt. Maybe USC implodes. Maybe everything goes to crap. I'm saying you're playing the odds. And the thing that's driving me nuts is like people have forgotten. People think like when I hear conversations, yes, USC was 4-8. They also fired their coach the second week of the season. You know, even with Helton as the coach, if we hadn't made a wide receivers coach, not even a coordinator, dude, there's never been a coach in his life, the head coach, 2 weeks into the season. You know, I mean, they win at least 6 games. So yeah, 6-6 is terrible, but it's still 6-6. You know, that team's not as terrible as people want to make it sound. But all that said, there's a good chance that, you know, he goes to USC and it backfires. But I'm saying play the odds. We've seen what a Riley offense does. This whole thing about, well, geez, what you know, Pitt or USC, it must be the money. I don't know what world we're living in. I'm not trying to be too arrogant, but Pitt, USC football, where do you go even name the names of the schools? So I'm just kind of tripping out because we know this how it's happened. If there was tampering, Riley wasn't like directly involved. He did what Kirby Smart does, what Saban does, what Ryan Day does, what everyone does. They say, "Hey, man, give this guy a call." That's probably the closest you're gonna get to tampering. he's not stupid enough to pick up a phone call with, and make a text or a phone call to a recruit. That's not how the stuff works. All those SEC schools, anyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. All these kids, 7-7, they all have a network of friends, not to mention their agents and everyone else. They're the ones talking. The NCAA is the problem. They left this loophole where they could talk, and it's not tampering unless the coach calls. And I don't think any of these coaches are stupid enough to call. That's my point.
Yeah, I think that conversation's been had a number of times, and yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. And especially when these, like you say, everybody's a text away, and these guys have been talking to each other since they've gone to all sorts of, regardless of what schools they've ended up. These elite football players, they know each other. They're on social media. They're texting each other. They've gone to a zillion camps together. They know each other. Now, back to your point about USC, I just want to make something clear here. When you say USC wasn't that bad last year, you mean their talent wasn't that bad last year. The performance on the field was atrocious. You mean the roster's not that bad.
I meant they weren't as bad as their record. Okay. I wasn't very clear. They weren't as bad as their record. There were players on that field that were not prepared. Yeah. Yes. If I spoke that way, I misspoke.
Absolutely.
My point is that they were awful last year.
Yeah.
They were wretched last year. It was unwatchable last year.
Yeah. When you're losing to Stanford by 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter in performances,
that was ridiculous.
Like that. Yeah.
But thank you, David Shaw. That's what got us a new coach. So I appreciate the effort, Stanford, for helping us get Helton out the door. But yeah, no, that's all. I mean, I'm not going to keep it going very long. But we're all running off of what Narduzzi said. There were 8 teams apparently he came out and said that were tampering. Are we hearing about the other 8 teams? Or are we just hearing about Lincoln Riley? Because again, he's news. He's newsworthy. So they're throwing Lincoln Riley out there. And then 4 weeks was it? Your USC contributor, I forgot, Zemek. He brought the point that 4 months ago, Notre Dame, he 4 months ago talked about Notre Dame trying to poach and tamper with Pickett the previous year, but nobody's talking about that either. What's going on is everywhere. Is it right? No, it's not right. But if you're not doing it, and that's why the Pac-12 and some other conferences have fallen behind, because some other conferences are known for this kind of stuff. They're not breaking the rules. They're just bending a lot of stuff. They're using loopholes, and sometimes they're outright cheating. But if you're not playing the game, you can't be. We're talking about elite. If you want to be elite, you better be taking advantage of all those loopholes. Do you agree, Mark, or disagree?
Oh, I completely agree.
So
yeah, there's no way to
it's just USC.
It's similar to what goes on in our political system. There are a lot of well-meaning people that get into politics, and then they figure out how the game's played. And if you don't, scratch their back and they scratch your back and, put their X, Y, and Z into your bill to get it, then you can't play the game. So a lot of things can't be as pure as you would like them to be, just because that's the real world, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then Uncle Rico, we're hearing about Lincoln Riley because Narduzzi called him out specifically. That's exactly what I'm talking about. He also said 8 other teams. And that's what I'm trying to say. What's going on is wrong. But because there's a loophole, I'm telling you right now, Williams called Addison, said, hey, man, what do you think about this? And that's what's making all of the news. When it's not a Lincoln Riley thing, this is an NCAA football thing that's been going on since before. As soon as they had the situation where you didn't have to sit anymore, it was open season. And yeah, coach, I can't talk, but I could have my star linebacker talk to the guy that's been playing on the line, or I could have my quarterback call receiver, or I could have my guard call a running back. They know each other from high school. That's what's happening. And if we think that USC is the only one doing it, I mean, come on, that's so naive. I don't know where to begin.
Well,
so anyway,
I made
all right, Mark. So let's get that flag going.
Absolutely, I've got the banner up on the screen. That would be phenomenal. But I did make the call, the comment to Zemek. I'll get it out. I made the comment to Zemek the other day. People are going to make Lincoln Riley a target because even people outside of the Oklahoma circle don't like the way that went down, and he's out as a villain anyway, and they don't like him grabbing all these players. And then this has become the case. This has become, in a new era of these players being bought, this has become the case example. So people are instantly going to continue to villainize him. It just fits the narrative.
Yep. Yeah. All right, but let's get the flag going. I just wanted to call and vent a little bit that, because that's all I'm hearing in the media. I really wish you could get Matt Zemek on. Have you talked to him about doing a call-in show? I'm telling you, you could have a lot of SC fans in here.
Well,
you've got a decent sized channel on SC, right?
Yeah, we do. It's funny you say that because, yeah, I guess I'll announce that a little bit later. But basically, we're talking about that right now. How much time he has, and if we can do it, and if we could possibly get a sponsor and all that. But yeah, we've talked about that. I would love to do a USC live stream every week. Yep.
Yeah, he's got a good podcast. I enjoy it. So I would definitely. I mean, I'm tuning in. I'm tuning in. If you had a USC show, obviously I'm going to be there as well. All right. Again, thanks for everything, and I'll talk to you later.
Appreciate it, Tim. It's our guy, Tim. Tim is just hardcore. He's with us all the time, supports in any way he possibly can. We see him on Miami shows and Florida State shows. He's all over the place. USC fan that loves college football and what we're doing here. Next up here at the Voice of College Football, who's on the line?
This is Sean. Hey, I'm just calling back, Mark. I called a few nights ago. It was kind of late in your show, just talking about Steve Deese and how I just really disagreed with his recruiting rankings when he was looking at Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State. And I just wanted to thank you for looking into that. And, I was actually surprised looking at your numbers that it was like Ohio State was pretty much, I would say, number 2. Just looking at it, they were always kind of in the mix between all three of them. So it was actually a little bit more surprising than I thought it was going to be. And it was kind of interesting. The next day after we had that conversation, I looked at the defense, and man, they've been pulling in a lot of really good defensive recruits. At least you see them in the top 100 players are pulling in quite a few of those. So it's definitely the coaching, I would say. And it sounded like that was your basically where you were getting at in your video. And I just wanted to tell you, I appreciate you looking that up, and I hope you tell Steve he's wrong.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, because that was the phone call in our conversation that led me to dig into that. Because while we were having that conversation with Steve, I was sitting there thinking, I don't know that I necessarily agree with this. I'm not going to argue with him because I don't have it right in front of me. I know that Ohio State has recruited overall pretty much right with those two, but maybe it's been very offensive heavy, because I've certainly looked it up at times, and I've pinpointed several classes where Ohio State, let's say, for example, had 6 of its top 8 recruits were offensive players. It has leaned that way. And the only thing I didn't like about that video, I just really couldn't figure out a way to represent those defensive recruiting numbers in a way without just doing some mind-boggling math, trying to get the average of 77 Alabama defensive signees and average out the rating. I was like, okay, I'm not doing that. So it was difficult for me to kind of present it. So I did the best I could there, but I wasn't real happy with that part of it because it was tough to present, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I think offensively, if you looked at it, they'd probably be similar to, I don't think Ohio State would be, if you say, because of where they've landed in the ranking, if you're saying we're offensively just way, over recruiting on that side of the ball, then I think you would look at it and say, well, then Ohio State should be number 1 in offense every year. And that's definitely and probably not the case in those rankings. So
I was thinking the same thing.
It would probably be pretty even on that side.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to say was, I'm sorry to the Georgia fan who called after my call the last time. I was being facetious about Georgia, because just the way Steve said it's Georgia and Alabama and just them. And my point is, Georgia, if that's the case, then they've underperformed. They've only won one national title. If it's only them and Alabama, you know what I mean? So that was kind of my thought behind that. And then I had one more comment. Oh yeah, real quick about the colleges, paying players now. Not the colleges, but the funds. It's kind of sad in my opinion, but it'll be interesting to see with colleges in the next year or two. I was listening to Buckeye Scoop and some Notre Dame channels, and I think the northern teams have like a different mentality when it comes to actually giving the funds like that or supporting the university. They always kind of are like looking to maybe get something out of it. But I think like your USCs and your Miamis and a lot of your, SEC schools, they've been doing this for a while. and that's kind of just what I've been hearing, at least on those stations. And so that their fan bases are a little bit more into that. So I hope it doesn't ruin the sport in that sense, but very interesting times. And thank you so much for your show, Mark.
Hey, Sean, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Call back anytime.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. I believe we have 2 more calls. We can take these and wrap it up for the night. Appreciate everybody being here. And when Sean mentions listening to a Notre Dame podcast and Buckeye Scoop and something else, you know what? It leads me to make this comment. I appreciate everybody here that often says about all the knowledge I have and all this other sort of thing. But keep in mind, you guys, in a sense, of course, you guys have families and jobs and all that other stuff going on. So everybody has different levels of time that they have to devote to all this. And you have other interests and whatever. But man, sometimes I'm hit with the realization that, I'm on Facebook and Twitter and all this other stuff, trying to get the word out there, and I'm editing and I'm doing all this other stuff that in terms of trying to just spend the time to soak up what's going on. And I miss so many things because I'm doing X, Y, and Z throughout the day, and I'm pouring everything I can into this, but I don't get to take in a lot of this information. So I listen to you guys, and you guys are a tremendous source of information for me. And certainly if you want me to know what's going on, and hey, if X, Y, and Z coordinator gets fired or whatever news you hear, you want to be like, hey, Mark, jump on this. And a lot of you do that on Twitter, will shoot me things to make sure that I didn't miss something. I appreciate that because we try to get on this as soon as possible. And I certainly miss a lot of news out there. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. This is Hank in Clemson, South Carolina. So obviously I want to talk about the Tigers. I think that people are really underrating them this year. They're going a lot off of what happened last year, but Clemson was decimated by injuries last year. They're going to have the best defensive line in the country coming back. They've got everybody coming back. They've even got the backup guys coming back, much like what happened in 2018 when the Power Rangers came back and, they beat Alabama for the national championship. Really the main thing, and we've got 3 great running backs too, Will Shipley, Kobe Pace, and Phil Maffa. So, the main thing that's the crux of it all is going to be getting the quarterback situation straightened out by after game 3, because starting game 4, we've got Wake Forest and NC State back to back. So if we can get it situated by then, and I really think that Cade Klubnik is probably going to beat out DJ. He's got way more arm talent. I've seen him in the high school All-Star game where he's an MVP and threw 3 touchdowns. And he could just make some unbelievable throws, make some on the run. He's not as big as him, but that's okay. He's like still 6'3" or so. So that's plenty tall enough. He's just not, he's not 260. So I don't really think you have to have a 260-pound quarterback. And, there's no way we could possibly have as many injuries as we could last year. I know injuries are part of it, but Clemson have been very lucky up until that point in the area, we really didn't have a lot of injuries. And then last year we just got hit. It seemed like everybody went down. There were like 17 guys out of like the top 50 players on the depth chart that were down injured. And, you know, they were playing. Last year was really Dabo's best coaching job to be able to get 10 wins out of that team, which, you know, with a lot of the guys that were playing, I'm really, you know, that took a lot of effort, because you were playing a lot of guys that didn't have a lot of experience. And to win the last 6 games in a row to be able to get to 10 wins, the team has a lot of momentum coming into this season. So I really think this team is poised to do really well. I'm not sure if once they get to the CFP, if they can do anything there, but, you know, I definitely think that they can make it to the CFP, because I could see them going undefeated. You know, the only thing is going into Notre Dame and beating them, but, you know, I don't think that's impossible.
So what concerns me about Clemson is a number of things on offense. So I like the running backs. You just went through them. I think that, I think the world of the running back position. I think they're really good with Shipley and Maffa. Okay. The wide receiver play is surprisingly been mediocre, and it's been like this way kind of progressively. It's been progressively declining, or just in a steady form declining. And we, you know, over the course of from 2012, 2013 through 2018 or so, Clemson had arguably the best wide receiver core in the country. And I just don't see guys that outfight defenders for the football, that make hands catches. They just let DJ down a ton last year and the year before. And again, the wide receiver play is just nothing close to what it's been. The offensive line has not always been, it's probably been the weakest position during this dynasty run. And I don't see it getting much better, at least, again, I'm basing it on last season's play. We have Jason Priester on every week to talk, and he certainly thinks the offensive line is going to be better. So when you put all of that together with a quarterback who, at this point, you know, you're looking at Klubnik winning the job, and certainly by the looks of things, and I've seen his high school tape as well a little bit, that he's got the potential to be a much better passer than DJ, because Uiagalelei just for some reason has regressed from that 3-game audition he had 2 years ago. So it's just a lot of different factors on offense. Some of it, DJ not being the quarterback we thought he was, and a lot of it being that the supporting cast around him has not been up to Clemson standards.
Well, you know, Mark, 2 of the major weaknesses that DJ has is he looks down his receivers, so he lets the defenders get too close to the receivers, and that's going to make those catches a lot more difficult. Also, he doesn't arc the ball very well. He throws everything on a line, whereas like Klubnik will throw it over the defender's hands. So, you know, he's basically having to throw it through the defender's hands, and then that makes the catches way more difficult. You know, it's almost like, you know, you're not sure if he's going to tip it or not. So, you know, I think a lot of it has to do with the quarterbacks, because, you know, when Trevor was there, the receivers were doing fine. I just think that, you know, okay, it's a lot like 2017. We had Kelly Bryant, and somehow with smoke and mirrors, we went 12-2. And, you know, going into the next season, Trevor won the job, and it was about game 3 or 4. I think it's going to set up pretty much the same way. You know, we should win those first 3 games, no problem. If K can win the game by game 4, I think we're going to roll. And I think we could roll straight through the ACC, through the regular season, through the ACC championship game, and be 13-0 going into the CFP. Once we're there, I don't know. Maybe we can win a game. I just don't know if we stack up against Bama or Ohio State. I'm being realistic about that. But certainly, if we play up to our potential with the athletes we have, you know, I just don't see. I mean, you know, the potential's there definitely to be 13-0 headed in the CFP.
All right, Sean, it's good to be optimistic, and certainly I think you've got a shot. And like you say, best defensive line in the country. I don't have any questions about that. And I think the entire defense is going to be a top 3 defense in the country. So if they can find the quarterback, which I was very surprised with the way Uiagalelei played last year, considering how he played against BC and Notre Dame the year before. But yeah, if Klubnik is the real deal, then you're off and running. All right, sir. Well, I appreciate the call.
Yeah, we're lucky. Okay, thanks. All right, have a great night, Mark. Thanks.
Absolutely. Call back anytime.
All right.
All right. 2 more to go here on the Voice of College Football. Welcome in. Who's on the line?
Chris.
Hey, Chris. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am doing just fine. What have you been up to?
I've not really been doing I had an episode. I had to go to the hospital, but I don't want to talk about it because it's kind of a personal thing.
Okay. Sorry.
I had an epileptic seizure, but I'm doing better. I don't know what the cause of it was. I think I brought it on myself. I wasn't taking my medication very good. So if I come out across as being incoherent, maybe that's why. I probably come across as incoherent anyway, don't I?
No, you don't. You really don't, and I'm sorry to hear that, sir. So please take your medication, no. Chris. But I'm sorry to hear that. But I am also glad to hear that that you're doing much better. It appears.
Well, no, I've seen complaints in the chat. People don't particularly like, and I apologize if I bring up controversial. Don't explain my point in a way that people like, or maybe even present a problem as far as what the topic is.
Hey, Christopher.
That's really not what I try to do.
I will say this, that do you appear to be in any way incoherent? Absolutely not. Do you ramble at times? Yes. But do you know what? I ramble at times too. A lot of people ramble. So that's not just you.
If I commit any of those violations, I mean, feel free to interfere and do whatever you need to do. I'd rather have people saying good things about me than bad, even if it's justified. So anyway, I was kind of talk a little bit about the subject, which I thought was about the elite programs, if I could.
Sure.
You know, they pretty much covered it. They covered it pretty well, I have to be honest with you. You know, when I think of the Blue Bloods, though, or I guess just in my limited understanding of what I consider to be a program that's legitimate, I guess, you know, I try to weigh a lot of different things into consideration. And I don't want to go into them because, like I say, that's like when I start to ramble. But, you know, there's some obviously that we can't leave out without even, you know, Notre Dame obviously would be included for any mention of the blue blood. And there's other programs too that would obviously qualify. But sometimes there's a few teams that I think that maybe aren't getting the public or the publicity, I guess, that I think that they maybe deserve. And I won't go into too much as far as who I think they are, but one that kind of stands out in my mind. It might not stand out in yours, and so if it doesn't, that's fine. You know, I think Texas Tech actually has done pretty well over an extended period. You know, they brought in that coach from Utah State. I think they let him go, but you know, that's after only him being there a couple of years. And you know, obviously, I think they're committed to building a pretty good program down there. And I think they've actually done pretty well with what they, you know. And, you know, there's other teams obviously that are, you know, that you think about besides just maybe them, but. Yeah, I remember who was the coach that went to Washington State. He did real well there. And maybe Washington State might be another one. Another one, and I know you've already told me you don't agree with me on this one, so I won't like go into. I think Oregon State actually has a lot of potential to move up. Is what I'm trying to say. I don't. Jonathan Smith. I can't think of the coach's name, but you know, I think that's where Bronco Mendenhall was at before he went to BYU. So I think Oregon State's, I know they're not an elite team, don't get me wrong, but, you know, they've had some good, you know, Mike Riley, I think, was at Oregon State. And I think, you know, I know when he went to Nebraska, I know he didn't do that well, but, you know, I thought he did, you know, he didn't do that badly though either. I mean, what was he, 9-3 or 9-4, just 2 out of the 3 years. And I think they dropped off pretty badly after his 3rd year, but I was just kind of maybe asking you if you thought that, like when they make these decisions, I don't know what the administration thinks of it. You know, I thought Mike Riley actually was a pretty good hire. I mean, I thought he was a good hire because he'd been at Alabama. I think he was as an assistant, and you know, you can't really. I think when you think of the top programs, you can't do better than that. And maybe he didn't take them to the next level. I mean, that's probably what didn't I can't say, I don't look at those things as like, well, he was a failure as a coach because the last season they were 4-8 or whatever. That's like the glass half empty scenario. And so I kind of feel bad for these guys because, how many of us are going to have the opportunity to coach? Probably not too many. And it's like, if they're going to say that he was like a failure, that's not fair to anybody, really. I think Mike Riley actually was a pretty good hire. Do you have that same opinion, or am I all wet?
Mike Riley is an exceptional coach. He actually had some success at the NFL level, as you know, with the Chargers, and 2 successful stints, especially one of the 2 at Oregon State. Yeah, Mike Riley, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I believe his first season, I believe he went 6-7 with a bowl loss. And then I believe he went 9-4 with a bowl loss to Tennessee. And then I believe his last season, they went 5-7 and he was out the door. So something close to that. I think there was also, it just was not a cultural fit for Mike Riley. He's a very nice individual. He was a sharp contrast to Bo Pelini. Bo Pelini's a very rough, harsh, abrasive individual. And then they brought in Mike Riley, who's a very nice guy. And he obviously was successful with that approach. But I know that there were recruiting issues with him wanting to tap the pipelines to the West Coast and him stopping to and not focusing as much on Texas and other areas of the country. And there just being a lot of things beyond the record that just weren't adding up. He tried to install, so he had Tommy Armstrong at quarterback for pretty much his entire stay there. And Tommy Armstrong was pretty much a running back playing quarterback. And Mike Riley wanted to institute a West Coast offense, and it just didn't mesh with the personnel. And they didn't give him enough time to bring in his roster. His recruiting was decent. It wasn't bad. It wasn't exceptional. It was about what Nebraska's done the last 15 or 20 years. But again, he changed the pipelines. He directed his recruiting efforts more toward the West Coast. And just there were a lot of things. And apparently the strength and conditioning program wasn't nearly as effective under him as it had been.
No.
And so it was a lot beyond the wins and losses.
Well, and I don't know enough about the sport to know what goes into who they hire and all that. So I'm not even going to try to pretend like I do. But, they thought, well, okay, we'll hire Scott Frost and, he'll get everything humming along. And, I think he actually, I'll be honest, I think Scott Frost actually did pretty well initially, even though I know the record was like 4-8 again. It wasn't very good, but they were starting to win games maybe that they might not have won without him. And so I know they've extended his contract, and I think he just got recently in trouble for a recruiting violation. But, I personally think that Nebraska football I don't think that there's a better program as far as maintaining. I mean, they set the bar as high as I think you're going to set it. And maybe it doesn't always come across in the way that we expect it to. I know 4-8 is not a good for anybody, but I don't know, were they like 3-9 last year? I mean, they weren't a good program. I mean, no, but they weren't a bad program though, and I just kind of think it's too bad that, and I don't know who's behind some of these, they want to fire, or they did. I don't think they want to now, but they wanted to replace them again with somebody they thought might do better there. But, I think this is just my opinion, Mark. I think with any coaching hire, and we could talk about anybody, but, I think you have to give them, I don't know that 2 years, I know 2 years isn't enough. 3 is questionable. I think maybe after 3 years, maybe you have a good idea about whether it's a good, like you say, a good fit. So maybe Mike Riley, he probably wasn't a good fit. I'll be the first to admit he probably wasn't, but I don't know that he was like necessarily the worst person you could have gotten for the job. And I guess my point is, even if Nebraska doesn't turn a corner, it's hard to tell if they're going to. I don't know. I'm not good. I'm terrible at making predictions. I mean, you're much better at that than I would ever be, or even pretend to know. But I think I think the mark of a program, or at least one from my perspective, kind of like Northwestern, Pat Fitzgerald. They're not always the top program, but they're usually pretty good, and they seem to want to keep him because I think he, like you say with Riley, I think, and I don't know anything about Riley other than what he did as a coach, but that's, I think, in my opinion, a good hire. And I think it's too bad that because we're so fixated on whether it translates into a national championship, which, that's like the highest bar possible. And that's where Nebraska wants to go. If you ask I'm sure any Nebraska fan, they're going to say, we're not happy unless we're not the national, and that's where maybe where it ought to be. But, that's the highest, I don't know that anybody can do that, on a consistent basis. And so I think we got to cut some of these coaches a little slack. Maybe if they're underperforming, then you have to make a change. You don't have a choice at that point. But, I think Nebraska's still in a pretty good position. I hope they do well, because I think when you have a program like Nebraska that's consistently as good as they usually are, I think that's good for the Big Ten or for everybody else, because then we can say, well, what's Nebraska going to do this year? And then we just have to kind of wait and see. And then usually they deliver. I mean, it's the rare exception when they don't. Are you agreeing with that?
Well, I think we all understand that there are different expectations at different places. So you can go 7-5 every year at Wake Forest and you're going to keep your job. If you go 7-5 at Ohio State, you're going to get fired. So those are completely different places. So Nebraska's in a very difficult position from a recruiting standpoint because of what you just cited about what happened at Nebraska from going back to the late 60s through into the 2000s. It was arguably the best program in the country. Extreme success. Tom Osborne, one of the greatest coaches of all time, how successful it was. Starting after the Bill Callahan days and Frank Solich, they started to taper off. And in that first decade of the 2000s, they went from being one of the very top elites to a top 25 team. And they competed in the last two Big 12 championship games and competed very well against Oklahoma and Texas in the final two championship games, as you well know. Absolutely. 13-12 game. Absolutely. And the other game
probably should have won.
Yeah, probably should have won.
Probably should have beaten them. Yeah.
And the other game was 23-20. So they were competing for conference championships and actually made the Big Ten championship game their first season in the Big Ten. They got wiped off the field, but they made the game. Bo Pelini, based on what that standard was, going back to Osborne of going 11-1, 12-0 every year practically, Bo Pelini won 9 games every year he was there, which they would be overjoyed with that now, but based on their perspective then, they weren't. And there were other reasons why he got fired, but basically he was losing to the really good teams. He was getting embarrassed. They were getting blown out by most of the good teams on the schedule.
I remember Ohio State being pretty good.
Yeah, then Mike Riley takes over, and to your point, one of Mike Riley's teams started 7-0, and they were like number 6 in the country, and they went to Columbus and lost 62-3.
They got beat bad, real bad. I remember that.
But now we're in a situation with Scott Frost in that, so you have these grand expectations that you are the elite of college football, and historically they are, and they pack out the stadium. They support that team 3-9, 4-8, whatever the record. They're there. They sell out all the games. They love that team. But now we're in a situation with Scott Frost, and you alluded to his first season. His first season, there was a lot of change, and there has to be an expectation by reasonable fans that in a first year of a coaching change, you may have the right guy, but you may take a step back because he's implementing a new offense, a new defense, new terminology, building relationships with players and coaches, and all that transition that goes on. And they started that first season 0-6. But by the end of the season, they took a number 3 team in the country, Ohio State, to the wire. They took Iowa, a top 15 team in the country, to the wire, and they won 4 of the last 6 games. So I went into the next season, which would have been 2019, with a lot of hope that, oh boy, this is Scott Frost. He knows the campus. He knows the environment, the culture. He's a Nebraska guy. He's come home to save Nebraska football. Look at what he accomplished at UCF, and look at how much they turned it around the final 6 games of the season. and it just hasn't happened since then. They just.
Well, can I make a point about that? Is that okay? Well, I don't know. Again, I'm just basing it on what I you have to consider what I know against what really is, because there's kind of a difference between the two. And I think you probably are aware of that without me even bringing it up. But, the UCF before, I think it was George O'Leary's last year was 0-12. And obviously that's probably why he, I don't know if he was fired or he just quit. It doesn't really matter. At that point, you're 0-12. You're probably not going to stay no matter, unless you really are just committed to the program. And maybe at that point they didn't want him there. I really don't know. And I really don't know how Scott Frost got the job there, if you want to know the truth. I don't know if he was the top. He ended up there, obviously, and then he turned it around pretty fast.
He had some good years at Oregon
within 2 years,
as a coordinator.
Yeah. But the other problem was, as I recall, and it's like I say, this has been some time ago, I believe Scott Frost was one of the higher candidates, I think, for the job before they hired Riley. And I don't know enough about what goes into the decision making, but they could have actually had Scott Frost there for several years before they actually did. And so I don't know if they thought maybe he just needed to learn more, I guess, about what the coaching job, or I actually think, like I said, I personally think they made a good decision by not hiring him at the time. But, I don't know, I guess my point is, I'm not convinced that what Scott Frost did at UCF was all about Scott Frost, because I think he already had kind of a foundation there. Kind of like when Frost left and what's his name, the guy from Oklahoma that took over, did real well. Now he's at Tennessee. There's a foundation there. I mean, UCF is probably going to be pretty good regardless. I mean, and they're probably going to stay pretty good for the foreseeable future unless something unexpected happens. And so I don't know that it's as simple as you just take the coach away and that solves your problem. I think there's more evidence of that. I think when they hired Mike Norvell at Florida State, I think he was probably a pretty good hire, but it's like a better solution would maybe, this is kind of ridiculous and it's probably a stupid thing to say, but a better solution would be to have him and his whole team come over to Florida State, Memphis, and then build off of Memphis's success rather than try to, that's kind of a dumb thing to say, but that's kind of where it's at though. I mean, and so it doesn't really surprise me that when you hire Memphis's coach, that doesn't necessarily translate into immediate success, because there's probably a lot more to Memphis's success than just their head coach, is what I think. But, and I don't know. I mean, I think Memphis is probably going to stay pretty relevant for a while. But in fact, I consider them to be probably a top, at the very least, as the Big 12 expands, which I don't know if they're going to. Like they said, Boise State, which that doesn't really make much sense to me. I would think if you wanted to make an expansion team, you would consider Memphis, maybe Tulsa, maybe, I don't know who else is out there. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is I think there's some very good programs out there that we just don't hear about because we're not focused on them. I know, Memphis, it's like people don't expect Memphis to be very good, but they are very good. And it's another one I think I just kind of alluded to it. Maybe I'm prejudiced against certain teams, Mark, but, I think Tulsa is especially very good for the relative size of the school. And we have a little bit of evidence. I mean, they played, I don't know that one game really says a whole lot, but, they played Ohio State pretty tough. I can't believe that that's just an accident that Tulsa just caught maybe Ohio State flat-footed
and
so I
Oklahoma
think there's
State.
these programs that are out there. Well, but I think they've been good for a while, though. I don't think it's just like a past, I think I alluded to it when in my defense of Brigham Young's championship, I mean, we can make, 6-5 Tulsa, what's that matter? It probably doesn't, but the program, though, itself was very successful leading into that season. And so, there's like I don't know what you call it. It's a standard, I guess, that they continue forward from, I don't know how many years, Steve Largent, he went to Tulsa. I mean, he obviously did pretty well there. And the other thing, I have to give you credit, Mark. I know I try to kind of force things on you and you don't like it, and I don't blame you. It's like you're not going to probably tomorrow wake up and say, boy, that Missouri Valley Conference, they're sure a good conference, because that's not going to probably come from, but they are a pretty good conference. That's the reality of it, though. I mean, for being FCS Division I AA, the Missouri Valley Conference is actually one of the better Division I AA conferences that you're going to probably find anywhere. And so there's like a history there that kind of leans itself towards, whether you agree or disagree, that a Tulsa team that was in the Missouri Valley might pose a threat. That's the only point I was trying to make with Brigham Young in '84. It's not, I know 6-5 is not going to make a big wave, but if you can beat a team like that, there's evidence that you might have a good team, just the fact that you can do it. That was the point I was trying to make with Tulsa in 1984, because Tulsa was the Missouri Valley Conference champion that year. I think you probably already knew that.
Well, I do appreciate the conversation, Chris. Thanks so much for calling.
You're welcome.
You have a good night, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
You too. Good night. Bye.
Good night. And before I take this last call, to cap off one point that Chris was making, it all comes back in terms of how we evaluate these coaches and whether they should be fired or retained. It all goes back to expectations. The expectations versus what are the resources that coach has. Is he coaching at Kansas? Is he coaching at Alabama? Where is he coaching? What are the resources? For example, when Les Miles got fired at LSU, and especially Mark Richt at Georgia, people were asking me, should they have been fired? Well, my first response and reaction was no, especially Mark Richt. Now, Les Miles, as we are now finding out and found out after he left, other things were going on off the field, and the guy was not running a good program, in addition to going 8-4 and 8-4 and 8-4 and 9-3 and not meeting expectations. Now, with Mark Richt was running about as clean a program as you possibly can in big-time college football. So that difference aside, let's look at on the field. My initial response was, should Mark Richt get fired at Georgia? Of course not. He's doing a really good job. He's finishing in the top 10 in the country, 8 out of 15 years, consistently 10-2, 10-2, 10-2, 9-3, 10-2, 11-1. Really good records, one of the top coaches in the country. But here's the thing. What are they being paid to do? And Mark Richt and Les Miles were being paid to compete for national championships. They were being paid top 3 to 4 money in the country. So as soon as you agree to that contract that says you're the 3rd or the 4th highest paid coach in the country, well, you better be producing teams that are competing for national championships. And especially in Les Miles' case, considering he was fired in 2016, they went to a BCS championship game, of course, in 11. They had a great team. He got out coached. And anytime Les Miles is going to go up against Nick Saban with a month to prepare, he's going to get his butt kicked. But after that, 12, 13, 14, 15, that's 4 consecutive seasons into a 5th year of 8-4, 9-3, 8-4, 8-4. When you're recruiting top 4 or 5 classes and you're being paid top 3 to 4 money in the country and you're at LSU, it's not going to cut it. That's 4 consecutive seasons of being top 20. Not good enough. Are you a good coach? Yeah, you know what you're doing. You're really good. Are your teams good? Sure, they can beat anybody in the country on a given day, but 8-4 is not going to cut it when you're getting paid $8 million a year and you're tasked with competing in the SEC and gunning for championships. So it's about the expectations. All right. Our last call of the night. I got plenty of energy. I'm usually worn down at this point. And when I take those last couple of calls, I'm like, somebody could tell me that Kansas is going to win the national championship. And I'd just be like, yeah, whatever. But I'm ready and ready to go here. So let's take this last call here at the Voice of College Football. Please turn down the internet that I can hear myself on in the background. Yes. Hello.
It's Michael.
Michael, how you doing?
Tired of waiting, man. I've tried to call it like almost 50 times in the game.
50?
Keep busy and stuff. Yeah, it's like 40-something times.
We've got a heck of a show here. We got a popular show thanks to people like you.
Yeah, not bad. Hey, got a couple questions. You talk about elite stuff like that. And with Clemson and Georgia being successful in the last 6 years and stuff like that, 6 or 7 seasons, what considers them elite stuff? I can see Clemson with the 2 national championships, but how does Georgia all of a sudden get elite status in the last 6 years?
How did they do it, or why am I rating them elite?
Why are you rating them elite? Why did you leave out Oregon and Oregon and Florida State, but overall, I'm pretty sure overall you would have Florida State as one of your top 10 most elite teams. But Oregon, except for the last couple of years, haven't they been pretty elite team? Making the CFP like what 4 times, I think.
Oregon?
Yeah, I know they didn't. Or
Oregon's been to the playoff once. The first playoff.
Okay. That's why never mind. I dumb things that's called. I know Oregon and Washington is the only 2 teams that's made the CFP, right?
Yes.
From the Pac-12.
Yes.
All right. I don't know why I'm thinking, but no. How can you consider them Georgia because of what they've done and the most consistency in the CFP?
Okay.
Meaning they're like every other year.
This is why I consider Georgia to be elite. In 2017, Georgia won the SEC championship, and they came within an overtime pass of winning the national championship. They were, I cannot put my 2 fingers close enough together to show you how close they came to winning a national championship. Okay? So they were good enough to win a national championship in 2017. In 2018,
yes,
they played a historically great Alabama team, and they had a 2-touchdown lead in the SEC championship game, and they lost, and they finished 11-3 and ranked like 7th or 8th in the country. 2019, they went to the SEC championship game. They lost to a great LSU team. They won the Sugar Bowl. They finished 7th or 8th in the country. Okay. 2020.
I see where you're going with this.
They won the Peach Bowl. They finished 9-2. They finished 6th or 7th in the country, and then they won a national championship this past year. They have finished in the top 5 or 6 in the country with a national championship and within a whisker of a national championship. 2 national championship game appearances in the last 5 seasons.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. But no, even though Iowa and stuff like that, would you say within the last few years, maybe you could consider Wisconsin somewhat being elite, even though they haven't made it CFP though?
Wisconsin?
Or maybe Iowa? Yeah,
No.
I mean, they had some decent teams and stuff like that, but
Decent?
I don't know.
Are we talking decent or are we talking elite? Those are light years away from each other.
Well,
no, Iowa's not elite. They're nowhere close to being elite. Wisconsin's nowhere close to being. Wisconsin's really good. They're good teams. They typically finish in the top 15 in the country, but we have seen in the college football playoff, especially, there's a huge gap between being elite and being in that next 10 or 12, 15 teams.
Okay. Because I guess I see where you're going. I thought they were talking about it earlier. I thought they were talking about all the time. I didn't know you guys were talking about them within the last 8 to 10 years and stuff.
I was talking about right now. I started the conversation saying, right now, I believe Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Clemson are elite. And Oklahoma on the edge. But the way they've performed against elite competition in playoff games has not been, they've not shown themselves, aside from one game against Georgia in the Rose Bowl, to be up to the challenge.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I thought I didn't catch that part of this. I missed that part of the stream because I think I was doing something. When you talk about currently, I thought you talk about all time. But now, as far as all time, would you consider Florida State? Would you consider Florida State? I mean, they had that 20-year run of finishing in the top 10 every year?
Yeah, so Florida State and Miami in particular, and also Florida, they are in kind of a different category. If you're looking at all time, since the beginning of football, Miami is not elite. Florida's not elite. Florida State is not elite. If you're talking about since 1980, if you want to take the last 40 years, yes, they're elite. Especially Florida State, because they were more consistent throughout that time than Miami. Miami's entire football accomplishments, all of their football accomplishments came in a 20-year span from the early 80s, basically 83 through 02, 03. That's it. And everything else they've done is irrelevant. Doesn't amount to anything. Now, Florida State, they carried their success deeper into the 2000s than Miami.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about Michigan? Would you say they're an elite all-time program?
All time? Yes. They're not elite now.
All right. But do you think they can pick up where they left off and have a good 4 to 5 year run like they did last year for the next couple of years? Do you think they could be elite then?
Oh, sure. If Michigan, let's say in the next 5 years, wins three Big Ten championships and they are in the running for the other 2 and they go to the playoffs 3 or 4 times, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. No, I was just wondering stuff like that. Now, between the teams you listed within the next 5 to 6 years, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Georgia, which one of those do you think could fall off within the next 5 to 6 years?
The most likely one is Clemson because we've already seen some chinks in the armor.
Mm-hmm. I agree about that too. So, not bad. I was just wondering. Like I said, I apologize for misunderstanding you there earlier about your criteria and stuff like that.
No, I started a stream and I just wanted to talk and I just decided to come on here and we got on the notion of elite programs and those can all be taken from different directions. Some people called in, they were talking about all time. I wasn't, but Michael, you produce this show. So anytime you call, you can talk about whatever you want.
All right. I'm just wondering stuff like that. All right. Hey, for those out there whose moms are still here, please spend as much time with them as you can tomorrow. Always like the like button and tell your mom happy Mother's Day. You too, Mark.
Thank you,
if
Michael.
Your mom's still here.
Happy Mother's Day.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah. All right.
I certainly was going to back up those comments right there in regards to, yes, if your mother is still with you, then certainly treat mom with extra care and love tomorrow. But for 365 days, do that. My mom's about 500 miles away, so I will see her as soon as possible, sometime in the next few months, and sent her a card. Unfortunately, too late. I have a bad habit of buying the card in time, but not sending it on time. I have a bad habit of doing that, so I'm notoriously late with my card sending, just like I'm notoriously late for my live streams and call-in shows. But I make up with it with tremendous content here and great gifts. And Neil, thank you so much for the gift. Speaking of gifts, thank you, Neil, for that. We've got our Wolfpack helmet displayed proudly behind me. Thanks for the great content, Mark. Maybe set up a merch store. Oh, my goodness. I think I belly ached about that one night, and what a disaster setting up a merch store has been. Oh, my goodness. Yes, we need to do that. Shirts, flags, whatever. I don't think you make any money off merch, really. It's not about that. It's about getting the word out. The margins are like razor thin. So unless I sell 1 million, I'm not going to make much money, but it's about, setting up the merch store to get merch in everybody's hands and for giveaways and stuff like that. So yes, if anybody wants to take that over for me and wants to look into that, absolutely hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. That would be phenomenal because I have wasted more time. This is what I need to do. The next time, I got to bring it down. As soon as we get off the air, I'm going to go grab the mug that was ordered and I'm going to put it back here on the shelf so I remember it, or on my desk, because I'm going to show you guys the mug that came in, because I have set up a merch store with shirts and polos and, t-shirts, polos, mugs, jackets, the whole thing. And I did a test run and I purchased, a couple shirts and they were embroidered and it didn't come out right. And the mug was black. It was supposed to have the Voice of College Football logo on it, but it was just black. I was like, they just sent me a black mug. And then I looked at it a little closer and I realized it was like they put the logo underneath the black, and it was just a disaster. And to get to that point was ask David Knight if he's ever on here. Oh my goodness. We went through so many conversations and so many things to try to get that done, and it just did not happen. But Neil, thank you so much for that. And that's like number 37 on the to-do list. I don't know if I'm going to get to it, but I would love to have merch. Absolutely. So thank you so much for that. We'll take our last call here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line? Hello?
Hi, Mark. You're kind of a rock star.
Not really. No.
What I mean by that is that at the end of the show, a rock star always does an encore. He's always saying, "This is the last song, people," and then you play one more.
This is
so
true.
You're kind of cool like that.
That I do. My favorite rock star never did that, but yes, I do that.
You remember Phantom Live, and he said, "Last song, people." He was like threatening to go away, and then he stays on.
Well,
I
hate to see that I hate to see somebody that's been waiting for 10 or 15 minutes and then, I cut them off. No, Johnny Cash, Mozart is not my favorite rock star. Johnny Cash is not a rock singer. Anyway, go right ahead.
Okay, so can we talk a little bit about Oregon and Georgia?
Sure.
Okay. I think that Oregon is underrated, put down, and I think they're ready to play. I think that they are going to beat Georgia, and I'll bet 100 on it.
Okay, why do you think Oregon's going to beat Georgia? Other than just saying they're ready for it.
Well, I just think that Georgia's depleted. They're done. They're finished. They've got all their best. They're empty.
Really?
And I think that Oregon is fully charged. I think that Oregon is fully charged. I think they're ready to go, and I think that they are going to go into Atlanta and kick ass.
I've got one question for you. Are you an Oregon fan?
Yes.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I was just curious. I will be evaluating that game, of course, and making a prediction as we get close to the game. We still have 5 months. And I understand Georgia lost.
Yeah, that's the frustrating. The frustrating part is that we have 5. It's going to be a long hot. It's going to be a long summer. It's going to be a long hot summer. There was a movie about that. But anyways, we have to wait and wait. So we're patient. We're college football fans. We're patient. We'll wait.
We have to. Yeah, I got to tell you, and this should mean absolutely nothing to you because it doesn't matter what I predict for this game. It's going to have no impact on the game, regardless of what I say, but you're giving your opinion. I will come back with my opinion. If these two teams played tomorrow and were prepared to play, let's say we gave them a week to prepare, man, I see this game in the 31-13 range.
Wow. Ouch. Yeah, okay. Well, I appreciate you taking my call. Take a couple more if you can. I love you, bro. I like your show. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for calling. I appreciate that. You have a good night. So our Oregon fan that was very kind in regards to being all hyped up and psyched up about the game. And he gave his opinion, which I still didn't really get out of him why he thought Oregon was going to win this game and kick ass. Other than Georgia did They lost a tremendous amount of talent. Lost their best wide receiver. Lost, a defense. Lost 5 in the first round and more after that. That didn't even include Nakobe Dean. It was just an impressive run of draftees. Of course, on the Georgia side, that was incredible. Their 2 best running backs, all of that gone. I get that. They are still going to have one of the 3 or 4 best defenses in the country. Yes, they will still have one of the 3 or 4 best defenses in the country. And with Kenny McIntosh and Kendall Milton at running back, they may have the 2 best tight ends in the country on one team. Eric Gilbert and, Brock Bowers. I don't know. I think they're okay. I think they're going to be just fine. All right. Appreciate everybody being here. It's been a great show. We've been going at it for 3 hours and 26 minutes. No wonder I can no longer talk. Felipe's got the Buckeyes winning over Notre Dame 31-27. All right. Good to get these predictions in. Garrett George, Buckeyes 45-31. Christopher, Fat Elvis Encore. I'm guessing that Christopher just doesn't understand the brilliance. You would have to listen to the catalog to understand. Your perception is nowhere close to reality. Anyway, have a good night. Happy Mother's Day. Enjoy your mom. I hope she's still with you. If not, enjoy the memories, certainly. And we will see you soon right here at the Voice of College Football.